Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. We'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. We start our meetings with an invocation, which we observe by having a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And next up, we have the roll call. I just going to take a moment of personal privilege and thank our clerk, Shar, who will be leaving to take the role as chief clerk for the city of Nampa. We have so appreciated your service. I've loved having you by my side. We will miss you. Won't hold it against Mayor Kling. But with that, I would ask that for the last time you call the roll.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Bajent.
I will miss Shar.
Clegg.
Here.
Halliburton.
Here.
Sanchez.
Here.
Willits.
Here.
Woodings.
I too will miss you, Shar.
Thank you. All present.
Madam Mayor,
Thank you. Yes.
I have two motions that I'd like to make. One is that I move that we defer Resolution 13522 to a date certain of March 15th. Staff is awaiting additional documents that are needed to proceed. And second, that we pull the FY21 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report off the consent agenda and put it second on special business to allow staff to present a few slides.
Great. Thank you. First, we'll move into a request for approval of the council meeting minutes from the work session and evening meeting of March 1st.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the city council minutes of the work session and the regular evening meeting of March 1st, 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg.
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Willits.
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Madam Mayor, I think I said move to approve instead of unanimous consent. So we either need to ask for
Oh,
no
I'm
objection
sorry.
or we need to vote on that. I can't.
Okay,
Thank you.
yep. Would
I
you
can
like
make it
to
as
request
unanimous
unanimous consent? Without objection. Sorry about that.
Thank you.
Okay, and next up, we will move into special business, and we have one item this evening, and it is the appointment of Timothy King to serve as our Director of Planning and Development Services. I just wanted to say a couple things before handing this off to council. This is a long-awaited appointment for this council, for my office, for this city, and we are so pleased that Timothy King has agreed to join our team and to be part of the city of Boise as we seek to serve this community and ensure that we're a city for everyone. Tim comes by way of Atlanta, but importantly, I would say his history in smaller communities where design and people-oriented and neighborhood-oriented development was important was something that was really important to me and to the selection committee. I look forward to the partnership that we will have as a mayor and council and with this department director. And importantly, look forward to welcoming Timothy, if you're so willing, to join the executive management team at the city of Boise, an incredible group of directors whose time is spent thinking and not just thinking, but then doing what needs to be done to ensure that we're able to innovate and to provide the services and create the city that our residents have come to expect and seek to envision with us. And so with that, it'd be an honor to put this nomination before this council.
Madam Mayor, I move that we confirm Timothy King as the Director of Planning and Development Services for the city of Boise.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to serve on the selection committee. It was an honor and a pleasure to interview the various candidates for this job. Many of you know that planning is awfully important to me, and filling this job has been one that has not just been on your mind, but on the mind of many of us in the city, including myself. As it turns out, I had the pleasure of listening to Mr. Keene speak at a conference many, many years ago, which I didn't put together until after the process. But after contacting an old dear friend in Charleston, South Carolina, I confirmed that my memory was right. And for me, that experience, that memory of that experience confirmed what I learned during the confirmation or the selection process, which was that Tim comes to us with a variety of experience in a variety of kinds of sizes, contexts of communities, including in Charleston, South Carolina, where there's a tremendous array of historic resources that he was charged with figuring out how to both protect and make vibrant as the city revived and grew. And from my experience in that city, he was very successful at doing that. His earlier experience in Davidson is one that I had also followed through some books that I'd been reading early on in my planning career around rural design and how to make small rural communities work as they grew, in this case with the college in Davidson. And most recently impressed with his work in Atlanta, where he was able to take a department that had a long reputation of not working very well for either the citizens or the development community and turning that around. And for all of those reasons, I'm just really terribly excited about this appointment and confirming the appointment tonight so that this city can get on with some of the important work that we've all been thinking about for so long in terms of design and dealing with growth, protecting neighborhoods at the same time that we offer opportunities for affordable housing and good transportation choices. So with that, I heartily give my support.
Madam Mayor. I had the opportunity to sit down with Tim and Councilmember Halliburton today and was just so impressed by Tim's innovative approach to things, many that he's seen before, but also how we apply those here in Boise. He had some really great questions about the current state of our city, where we're at right now and where we hope that we'll be. He had great ideas around how we serve our citizens better, including addressing some issues and concerns that I've heard from citizens over the years about being able to build their own homes instead of having to work with professionals when folks are, perfectly capable of filing an application to put a patio cover on their home, for example. So I was just really impressed with his approach, his understanding of myriad planning issues. And if you look him up online, he has all these accolades. I just feel like we're really lucky to welcome Tim into our city. And thanks for coming to join us.
Madam Mayor, I can keep this pretty short. I just want to welcome you to my hometown. My father is also from Georgia, and he came here and he decided that this was the place for him. And now I'm here as well. So I'm excited to welcome you to Boise. I think it's an amazing place to be. Certainly, we have some challenging times, and I would never discount any of those challenges. But I also think that I would describe it as an exciting time. There's so much opportunity to help shape the future in Boise with our zoning code rewrite, so many of the things that we're working on. And it's a great time for somebody to be able to come in with your caliber and really help us do that. So excited to have you here and welcome.
All right, with that, clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Agent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Well, Mr. King, congratulations. Come on up. Would you like to come up and say a couple things? Or did we not tell you you get the chance to talk if you would like to talk? I guess I could have told you that at dinner.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. I certainly come to Boise recognizing what a unique time this is for Boise in terms of the growth of the city and what you're facing. I'm happy to be here and help you and the residents of Boise deal with the challenges that growth brings. Certainly, it's the planning department's responsibility to help you and the residents of the city shape this growth such that Boise becomes a better place. And I'm excited to be in a city where the relationship between the physical place and the prosperity of the people is recognized by its leadership and so many of its residents. The relationship between the physical place and the people in Boise is such a close one. That's exciting to me. It's one I've experienced before in my life, and I know that many things are possible as we try to address the incredibly difficult issues that cities face, principally affordability, mobility, sustainability. Each of those is a very challenging thing to deal with, of course, in a growing place. But when you have a group of people that's committed to the place, then great things are possible. So I'm excited to be here and part of that.
Thank you and welcome. Okay. I think we do yeah, we should. I'm going to call it the CAFR because I'm not going to get the right words for it. If we change the agenda, thank you. And we're going to move to the next item. It's under special business. It's just not on the printed agenda because the council president made a motion to add it to special business. We'll do that next. I think we need to turn it on. Yeah.
Madam Mayor, council members, good evening. I'm Sabrina Peterson. I'm the city's controller. I'm here to present you our annual comprehensive financial report and the results of our annual financial audit for the year ended September 30th, 2021. One thing that is a little bit unique to this year is the report name did change. It is now the annual comprehensive financial report. Us in the accounting team have been calling it the ACFR, a little bit like a hairball, but the original acronym was found to be not politically correct. All right, this is going to be very brief. Our net position for the year, the city continues to have a good financial position. There are increases in cash and investments, mostly due to prepaid federal grant awards that were received and our airport bond. Both of these items are offset by a liability. The city continues to invest in assets for the future. Some of those bigger items that were invested in this year are the Landers Street treatment plant at the airport, the taxiway and garage, the Bowler Park Greenup and Greenbelt renovations. The city continues to make good investments for the future and for their citizens. One other major impact to our balance sheet is the Percy. Favorable investments resulted in actually moving that liability into an asset position for the current year. And that is an impact to our financial statements because we own a portion of that asset. For the audit results, over the past several years, The management has established a process to identify and track expenditures that were not accrued as of the cutoff. This helps with our relationship with the auditors as they're reviewing transactions that are done throughout the year. The audit results were an unmodified or clean opinion over the financial statements and internal controls over financial reporting. There was also an unmodified or clean opinion over compliance for federal awards, expended and compliance for each major program. With that clean opinion, there were two significant deficiencies in internal controls over federal awards. Those were both on federal grant reporting requirements, where due to circumstances beyond our control, a couple of reports were inaccurate and or not reported. Because of the significant deficiencies, we are required to provide a corrective action plan. So with that corrective action plan, COVID-19 pandemic resulted in an increase of federal funding available to municipalities. As a result, the city approved the creation of positions to create a grants office, including our new grants manager. This was proactive prior to our significant deficiencies, so we already saw a gap because of that additional funding coming towards us. Our city departments have done well with reporting in the past and will keep the responsibility of reporting with them. The departments will provide a listing of reporting requirements to the grants office as new awards are received and of existing awards at this time. And together, the grants office and each department will collaborate to ensure the city is compliant with these grant reporting requirements going forward. Madam Mayor and council members, thank you for your time tonight. Do you have any questions on our financial report or our audit or corrective action plan at this time?
Madam Mayor, with that, I would move that we accept the annual comprehensive financial report or ACFR and the audit as reported.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Madam Mayor, just real quickly, I would note that for the first time that I've been part of this, the auditors made a special point to praise the work of Sabrina as they completed their work and how timely she was and how much help she was in making sure that everything was done well and accurately. So just wanted to pass that along.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thanks. And now we will move on to the consent agenda. All items with an asterisk are considered to be routine by the council and will be enacted by one motion. There'll be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or citizen so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered in its normal sequence.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Madam Mayor, before we vote, if I could just note, there is a resolution on here that notes that the company is a subsidiary of Jacobs. My husband works for Jacobs, but he does no work in relationship to this company. So I'm going to go ahead and vote on this.
All right, thank you. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. And now we'll move into ordinances. First on the first reading.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on first reading be read by number and title only and filed for the second reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD-9-22, an ordinance COA 21-00004, amending the Development Code regarding wireless communication facilities and associated definitions, Section 11-06-04.2 and Section 11-12-02.1, including changes to the review process and site development standards for attached and freestanding communication facilities. ORD 10-22. An ordinance amending Title IX, Chapter 2, Development Impact Fees, Section 12B, Boise City Code. This amendment updates the development impact fees for service per service unit and providing an effective date of May 6, 2022. ORD 11-22, an ordinance repealing and replacing Boise City Code Title 3, Chapter 4, entitled Sidewalk Cafes, setting forth the legal authority, purpose, and scope of the ordinance, establishing that general licensing provisions are applicable, providing definitions, requiring a permit and establishing permits are non-transferable, setting forth application requirements, the ongoing duty to update an application, and timing of applications, allowing for conditions to be placed on a permit, establishing that a permit does not grant any property interest, providing for application fees, setting insurance requirements, setting forth the application review process, establishing permit standards and requirements, providing the permit term and renewal details, providing for the denial, suspension, revocation of a permit and an appeal thereof, providing penalties for violations of the ordinance, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date. ORD 12-22, an ordinance amending Boise City Code Title 3, Chapter 14, Stationless Shared Mobility Programs, and Boise City Code Title 6, Chapter 13, Bicycle, e-bikes, and e-scooters, approving a summary of the ordinance and providing an effective date. ORD 13-22, an ordinance adopting a new Chapter 19 to Boise City Code Title 3 entitled Festival Blocks, setting forth the legal authority, purpose, and scope of the ordinance, establishing that general licensing provisions are applicable, providing definitions, providing for the designation of festival blocks, providing an application for festival block designation, setting forth the factors and standards for festival block designation, providing the authority for designations that no property right is granted, requiring designation to operate as a festival block, establishing designations are non-transferable, providing the term of designation in compliance with all laws required, setting forth signage requirements, providing the uses allowed under festival block designation, establishing process for designation reassessment, providing for the denial, suspension, or revocation of a festival block designation and an appeal thereof, setting forth penalties for violations of the ordinance, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date.
Thank you. And now second reading.
Madam Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on the second reading calendar be read by number and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection.
ORD 7-22, an ordinance enacting a new Chapter 22 to Title 3, Boise City Code entitled Short-Term Rentals, providing the legal authority, scope, and purpose of the ordinance, providing that general licensing provisions shall be applicable to this chapter, setting forth definitions, requiring a license and prohibiting license transfer, setting forth the license application process and ongoing duty of the applicant to update application, and empowering the city clerk's office to condition a license issued under this chapter, providing for a license fee, setting forth license standards and requirements, requiring licensee to provide proof of insurance, setting forth license term renewal requirements and allowing license to remain valid during renewal investigation, providing for the denial, suspension, and revocation of a license issued under this chapter and the appeal process, providing a penalty for violations of this chapter, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date.
Now we will move to third reading.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I move that further reading of ordinance 422 and 522 be dispensed with and the record reflect that they have been read for the third time in full.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries. ORD 4-22, an ordinance CAR 21-00018 for property located at 12371 and 12553 West Goldenrod Avenue, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance from A-1 open lands park to R-1B single family residential, setting forth a reason statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 5-22 and ordinance CAR 21-00023 for property located at 914 West Royal Boulevard and 917 Southwest Street, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance from C-2D general commercial with design review to R-ODDDA residential office with downtown design review and development agreement, sending forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move that ordinance 422 and 522 be approved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts.
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Now we will move on to, that was both of them. So we'll move on to public hearings. Our first up is the hearing on public transit. And will those of you that are here for this one, raise your hands, just so I have a sense of who in the room? Great, thank you. And if folks are online for this one, if you'll raise your Zoom hand, our clerk will help us go through and call you to testify on this matter. But first, I'm going to start with folks that are here in the room. And with that, we've got Karen Gallagher and Bree Brush to present on behalf of the city, and then we'll turn it over to the public to hear from your, to hear your testimony. The mic is, I think the mic's going off when people
we go.
leave.
That's okay. Madam Mayor, council members, good evening. Bree Brush from the Mayor's Office and Karen Gallagher from Planning and Development Services. A few weeks ago, you had a presentation from Valley Regional Transit summarizing last year, and this year will be an opportunity to look ahead, hear from the public on their thoughts for public transit for FY23. And then Karen and I will share some information on FY23 priorities as well. To give you some background, in 2019, this body established a memorandum of understanding with VRT to outline a regular process for public transit funding. As part of that, you receive an annual update from VRT to City Council each year. You provide an opportunity to hear from the public. That's where we are now. And then our next steps after this will be a resolution to finalize a funding amount for VRT. And the annual projection for 5% would be somewhere around 8.7 million. You can see on the screen here our most previous year's contributions as well. Next, I'll hand it over to Karen, who will talk about those FY23 priorities and even looking into some 5-year priorities for transit as well.
Thank you. So for the following year, or the next year, FY23, we wanted to continue emphasizing the one-time improvements on our best-in-class routes of Fairview, Vista, and State. But just backing up right before that, Stephen presented last month on the progress that VRT has made on the on-time performance, and we'd like to keep that as one of our top priorities to serve existing and to attract new ridership as well. So on those best-in-class routes, we wanted to focus on the stop amenities. Throughout our system, our bus stops are slowly making progress and improvements. Our goal would be to focus resources on those best-in-class routes as we spelled out in the Transportation Action Plan. So that does include the shelters, benches, lighting, and bike racks. It also includes real-time information, which the photo on the right here is an example of e-paper. It's a little different than what VRT is looking at, but it gives you an idea of the information that we can have at the stops. And we're looking at employing that first on State Street, hopefully through a RAISE grant, but if not, we've got other ways to move forward with that on State Street and then our other best in class as well. And then looking at the 5-year horizon, so VRT is developing their 5-year plan, and we wanted to highlight some of the priorities that we have to take forward. So one is looking at improving the transit hub that's out at the mall. And right now there's not much infrastructure there. I mean, there's plenty of room for buses, and we do have 6 routes that connect at the Town Square Mall. But looking to add an actual facility there to service the riders would be a wonderful step forward. And then we'd want to continue the bus stop improvements. Like I said, not only on the best in class, we have a lot of improvements we can invest in there, but throughout our system, we have improvements to make as well. And then as we've been doing in the last few years, we've shifted from service improvements, since our ridership is a little lower than it was at pre-COVID. As that ridership gets back up to pre-COVID, then we would want to start having the discussions on adding service improvements and adding buses to the fleet again. And so our top priority there would be the Fairview route, to increase it to the 15-minute frequency, which is what we have on State and Vista currently. And then our next priority that we'd like to put forward is looking at our 5, we've got 5 routes that have our lowest frequency, and they're currently at 60 minutes. So if we could bring them up to 30 minutes during the peak is one proposal we'd like to put forward. So this is a 5-year plan. We will have the opportunity to revisit it annually. So this is a starting point. And with that, we'll close out with a map showing the system and to answer any questions you have, and then we can transition into the public hearing. I did also want to just highlight that at your at the dais there, we've given you a copy of an email from Kelly Long that we received since the packet had been sent to you, on her comments on the system and what she has experienced. Thank you.
Madam Mayor. Well, thank you. Excited to hear the progress that we're making, and looking forward to seeing some of the cost estimates for some of those extensions. My question is this: if we don't see a return to ridership on Fairview to pre-COVID levels, kind of thinking chicken and egg here, do we wait if we think we are at a point where we have the funding to increase frequencies to 15 minutes, or do we go ahead with a 15-minute frequency, anticipating that that will draw more riders? My memory is that on State Street, we went to the 15-minute frequency, assuming that it would draw more riders, and it did.
Madam Mayor, Council Member. There's a few things at play there. So on State Street, we were already in a growth situation. And then specifically on Fairview, Fairview's interesting because it has the 7, Fairview split into 2 routes. So there's 2 routes that run on a segment of Fairview, and then the 7B splits off and goes down south to the mall, and the 7A heads up into the West Bench. So right now, with the resources that we have, they are timed such that we have 15-minute frequency for 3/4 of an hour. So Fairview almost has 15-minute, at least for that segment. It doesn't mean that we have 15-minute heading out to the mall. So it's not as far behind as you might take just at face value if you looked at that. The comment wasn't just on Fairview that we would wait for it to get to pre-COVID. I think it was more of a system that we would wait till we get to pre-COVID. Of course, bringing buses on is expensive. The other issue is you have to you plan ahead almost 2 years for the bus. So since that's kind of a moving target at this point, it was a safer bet to say once it gets to pre-COVID, then we could order the bus and then we could go forward. We don't have a lack of one-time improvements that are needed. So it's really an opportunity to invest in the system, because otherwise we always have this kind of tug between the two of, do we just head forward with increasing service and that our bus stops are really in need. So we did see this as an opportunity, but that, we're of course open to how council would like to proceed that way.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's a great explanation of all the challenges. Just thinking a bit ahead, if we get to the point, say a couple of years down the road, we've made those infrastructure investments. We haven't quite reached pre-COVID. Do we, at what point do we start planning for the increase in service and just making sure we keep an eye on it? I guess the other point for me on Fairview is at what point do we look at the route structure even more deeply and see if we can't find a route structure that helps ridership. I think we did some of that on State Street by splitting off the 10 from the 9 and the 9X and really focusing on the 9. And it seemed to help. So there might be something to be gained there in the future as well.
Madam Mayor, council member, we definitely have some opportunities, especially in the West Bench and with the 7A and the 7B, and VRT's, ready to engage in that. I think we just want to make sure that we are in alignment on the land uses that are currently there, where we're headed. Some of the changes would switch right now that one of the routes is a north-south, so it does provide connectivity to the Town Square Mall and up through the West Bench. If that were changed to, say, a U-stick route, we lose some of that north-south connectivity. So there are some trade-offs, but there's some great opportunities. And we definitely think over this next year, we've got some great leadership coming on board in planning and development services that you just confirmed tonight, to have those conversations and to move forward in a partnership.
Madam Mayor, I have a question. When we look at the budget projections, has it always been 5% or has it been a little bit less? Because as I was looking at the different years, it differentiated and I wanted to get a better sense of that. Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts, the differentiation you see between 2022 and that projection for FY23 is simply that there were some federal relief dollars applied. So while we had the budget authority to go up to 5%, our request from BRT was lessened and offset by federal dollars. So that's the biggest distinction, but it is intended to grow with property tax so that we're able to keep up with the growing transit needs of our community.
So to clarify, the reason it's lower in 2022 is that federal money offset that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I could, for Councilmember Willetts and maybe others in the audience who don't know the history of this, previous to 2019, VRT would come to us on a yearly basis with a request for funding. And while we always met that request, their experience in other communities was not that. And so one of the reasons that the city of Boise chose to go to the MOU and a commitment to funding was so that VRT could do more long-range planning based on the knowledge that the city was going to at least fund it by this much. And so hopefully I think that has been helpful. And last year we had the opportunity to reduce it just a bit because of the federal.
Madam Mayor, I appreciate that history a little bit. I want to add a little more context for anyone who might be new to our community. So Idaho is now the only state in the nation that does not have a dedicated funding source for public transit. And so it's up to cities and counties and the various communities served by Valley Regional Transit to fund VRT through our general fund. Boise has made this commitment in a way that other communities haven't. It would be best if we had a state level funding source for transit like every other community outside of Idaho, because it really does give more stability, more ability for VRT to reach folks outside of Boise. Boise is really the only city that has the most comprehensive public transit system in the state. So just wanted to offer that as well.
Thank you. So now we'll go ahead and start with those of you that are here for this. I've got Mary Beth Nutting signed up on a sheet. So why don't you come on up, Mary Beth? And then there were 3 or 4 more of you that raised your hands. I don't have your names on here, so I'll probably just remember you, sir, I'll just kind of point into the room and you all can come up. Welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see all of you. My name is Mary Beth Nutting and my address is 5390 North Wall Avenue. I feel like my voice is booming. Am I too loud? Okay. Madam Mayor and members of the Boise City Council, I am a multimodal transportation user, meaning I bicycle, walk, use public transit, and drive in my commuting around the community. I have used public transit since I was 8 years old. I read a lot about active transportation and public transit. It is something that I care deeply about. Having an effective public transit system can address many of the inequities that we experience in our community and can support Boiseans in achieving their version of the American dream. Improving public transit in the city can give many Boiseans access to higher paying jobs, access to improved living conditions, and access to education. And when I say education, I mean starting at the preschool level through higher education at the university, college, or trade schools. It can support our aging population in their mobility and can help them in continuing to live in their homes. A reliable public transit system can provide people with disabilities access to various life-fulfilling opportunities throughout the city. To improve access to public transit in Boise, the areas of service need to be expanded. For instance, two of the major routes listed in the public hearing memo, the State and Fairview bus routes, need to be extended further west. Currently, the State Street route does not go any further west than the Walmart near Glenwood and State. And the Fairview route does not go any further west than Milwaukee. We're missing a lot of people and a lot of businesses. Another component to effective transportation is to extend the hours and days of service. There are 22 Valley Regional Transit routes. Of those 22, only 8 run on Saturday, 0 run on Sunday, and none of them run after 10 o'clock. Like me, a lot of people who use transit or who would like to use transit need to have access to it on the weekends and evenings in order to get to work or various activities in the city. In addition to that, the frequency that a bus runs on a route needs to increase. Several of the bus routes run hourly, meaning if a person misses their bus, they have to wait another hour for the next bus. Oftentimes, the infrequency of a bus can cause someone, because of the timing and connection of the buses, to have a bus commute time of 90 minutes or more, when that same commute would take 20 minutes by car. It would be ideal if every bus route could run buses every 15 to 30 minutes. According to the public hearing memo that was released, 5 of the routes are being considered for more frequent service in the 5-year transportation plan. One of those routes is one that I use frequently, the number 10, and I am particularly excited about
Madam Mayor,
that.
time.
We've got you at time. Would you like to wrap up with your last sentence?
I would love to. Given all that I've stated, I absolutely support the funding goal of 5% of the city's property tax receipts to support public transit in Boise. Thank you to Valley Regional Transit for all the work that they have done on improving the transit system. Thank you to all of you for everything that you've done in supporting transit, improving it, especially Council President Elaine Clegg, because I know that this has been a very high priority of hers for years and years, and I really appreciate it. Makes my life so much easier and other people in our community.
That's a
Thank you
long
very much.
run-on sentence.
I'm sorry. I have so much to say. I could have taken
I was
hours.
listening for the period in there.
This is why I wrote it down so I wouldn't ramble.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And actually, speaking of written testimony, council members did receive one from Kelly Long that we've got up here that'll go into the record. Thank you. Yeah, and if you want that in the record, you can leave it here and we'll get it in. Sir, did you have your hand raised? Yes, come on up.
Hello, and thank you to Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Nicholas Luttrell. I'm new to Idaho area. I moved here in November of 2020. I am a visually impaired person, and so I do depend on the buses to get around. I recently moved from the Seattle area of Washington, where they do have fairly fluent bus systems. And as I came out to Idaho and I'm learning the bus system, I started seeing the differences and the things that Idaho buses did not have. In July of 2021, I recently got a job that contracts with VRT. I have since been working down in the station, and I was happy to learn a lot of these things that have been lacking are in the planning process, and it's just come down to a lack of funding. I do appreciate the hard work that VRT does, as well as the council. And I think if we could get this passed, it can get moved forward and create a better bus system.
Thank you. Do we have somebody in the middle here? No, I think this direction. Over in this direction, I saw a couple hands. It was staff. Okay, all right. So you don't intend to speak. Gotcha. All righty. So nobody else in the room here. Kelly, did you want to come up? That sounds great. Anybody online?
Madam Mayor, we have Becky Walker.
Great. Did you say Becky Walker? Welcome.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Becky Walker. My address is 10827 West Ustick Road. And like several of the other people have testified, I am a public transit user and I have been for many years. I currently ride more full-time on my bike than the bus due to the lack of connectivity that the bus system provides. I'm excited about moving forward the 5-year plan, but for a lot of us, it's really hard. I can run to work faster than I can get to work by the bus. The lack of infrastructure is really frustrating as someone who does not like to drive and would like to utilize public transportation more. When I go out in the evenings, I Uber or catch a ride with friends. I would just really like to see more connectivity. I live almost to Meridian. My bike commute can average from 6 miles to 12 miles. When I can ride the bus into work with my bike, when I work in the East End, I still have to ride several miles, which is great for my health. But in bad weather, having more options than just having to ride in bad weather would be excellent. I think that this helps all of our marginalized communities. It helps kids who have missed buses, the school bus. It's just a great program. In Portland, kids get to ride the city bus for free. We just need to really push forward and work on connecting our city more with better infrastructure for buses. And I'm excited to see it. And I appreciate your time and thank you so much.
Thank you.
No, there's no one else, Madam Mayor.
All right. Well, with that, Kelly, do you want to come on up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Kelly Fairless, Executive Director of Valley Regional Transit. I want to thank you for the opportunity to share some of the thoughts from VRT's perspective. I also want to share with you, January 3rd marked the 28th year that I've been involved in public transportation in the region. And it's just been my great joy to work in a sector I value, and also for a region and a community where I grew up and also where I've raised my children. Our Valley Connect plan refers to the freedom to move. The idea here is being able to move when you want and go where you want, with the core element of personal freedom. This is what we strive for in our mission to connect more people to more places more often. I look forward to this public hearing each year because I'm reminded of the City Council's larger goals and the needs of those who are here to testify, and the needs we hear from of people all over this region all the time. And I want you to know that all of those who provided testimony here tonight and the issues that we hear from the city, that VRT is listening. What I hear most often and what I heard tonight is people want high quality transit. They want, more specifically, to continue to build great transit on premium corridors, to make connections to destinations within the city and across the region, to invest in bus stops, technologies, and other facilities that improve the quality of the customer experience. And that we need to figure out how to do that and provide those weekend and evening services as well. Also be assured that VRT takes seriously our role to ensure the optimal investment of the City of Boise funds as we move forward to address these important needs. We understand that to make connections to your strategic goals, whether it's housing for all, movement for all, climate for all, or opportunity for all, we may need to consider how to do more than one thing at a time. And for us, what that means is to continue to work with our jurisdiction partners to expand services across the region, to respond to all the changes and disruptions we've seen because of COVID. We want to make sure we're not leaving behind some populations because of the fact that ridership is down. We are still carrying really important passengers. And we want to offer solutions to lower performing routes and advancements that we see that technology may offer for making those improvements, and to identify and align some new federal resources. We talked about RAISE, but there's also quite a few of our formula resources that we could maybe use in different ways to stretch our local dollars. We use our 5-year work program as a mechanism to consider multi-year investments. This May, we will be launching a season of engagement with the community. We are using that time to not only talk about our transportation development plan and get comments, but also to hear about the ideas on other near and medium term investments the public would like to see. This input will be used to help us update our vision for the future. We hope to get some time to continue to bring those ideas back to this council and to your communities to help inform our future planning work. And finally, I just want to thank you for your support of Valley Regional Transit and that the leadership that you demonstrate to advance mobility and access to those you represent in the community. It really is a pleasure to work for all of you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Madam Mayor. Kelly, so first of all, I just want to say thank you to you. I know that you've put in a lot of hard work. Staff mentioned briefly that we're preparing an application for a RAISE grant, and want to really thank VRT for stepping up and helping make that reality. You were prepared, knowing what we could apply for and what was needed on State Street, and had that list at the ready. You'd also been working hard on the collaborative relationship with the other jurisdictions along State Street line. So for all of that, thank you. Really appreciate it. My question to you, you mentioned it briefly, as the strategic plan for VRT goes along, I haven't had a chance to ask you this. Is it your intention to come to each of the jurisdictions with some kind of a input opportunity for the full city council and not just those of us who serve on your board?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, we will come and present at any time. So yes, that opportunity is open to any jurisdiction that would like it. Like we said, May is sort of our season of engagement and outreach, and anytime we don't have to wait till May to have those conversations. So we're happy to have those conversations at any time. We are prepared to bring those ideas to the public and have been working with all of our partners around the region to talk about how to make these connections work better, how to make the services work more efficient. So those are ideas that are going to be presented in May, but we're happy to come and present to the council at any time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Madam Mayor, Kelly, I have 2 questions. One is, what sort of support do you get from other municipalities? I mean, how are they pulling their weight based on this? I mean, I know what Boise's doing, but give us a sense of Meridian, other communities.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts. So we have made, I think, a lot of progress over the last few years on balancing the contributions. So every community, we use a local cost allocation methodology where we look at the level of service that's being provided, and every community now is paying their fair share with some offsetting from our federal CARES and ARPA dollars. So at this point, the city of Boise is paying their fair share of the services that are provided here. We have seen an increase in the amount of funding that Meridian has budgeted, where for many years it was around 300,000. It's now doubled, around 650 to 700,000 a year. We had to suspend or delay the start of their new service. They're going to have a route. We know that route will work better when it connects to Boise, that people want to go. And we've heard from people in testimony here that they want to go between the community. So we certainly are trying to find ways within our existing resources to make that happen. Napa and Caldwell also provide funding that's equivalent to the level of services that they're providing, and they're looking at ways of trying to increase that percentage. One of the things Valley Regional Transit did this last year is a revenue analysis, and one of the proposals in that we will continue to move forward is the idea of having a more standard percentage of and more predictable amount of funding, so VRT can do the 5-year plan with a much better understanding of what we have available.
Madam Mayor, may I have one more? So I want you to think of big picture thinking, and I'll call this the Santa Claus question. I've heard here, I hear in other places that people like the idea of public transit, but when it comes to using it, it can be really difficult for all the reasons that we've heard, both in public testimony and anecdotally. What would it take financially to saturate it so that people would find it convenient to use?
Yeah. Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts, this is not really even a Santa Claus thing. There's a number. We know what it is. It's about 48 million a year. And we spend as a region almost that much in school bus transportation. So it's not like we aren't willing to fund transportation, that taxpayers aren't willing to fund it. We do. We already do in many ways. So it is about 48 million a year. That would give us 4 times more service. It would provide for better productivity, more options for people, so that idea of freedom to move really does mean something. For me, I use the 9 bus to come downtown. I rarely drive downtown if I can get away with it. I have to park and ride to a location, and I'm able to get on that bus with a 15-minute frequency. I don't even really have to think about it in the morning. It's not a matter of, oh, am I going to be able to make that happen? Because of that frequency, I can make that happen. Regions that are investing at that level are getting about 800 times more riders than we are here. So anywhere from 10 to 12 million. So it really isn't a magic number. It's just takes funding to do it.
And what's the current budget?
Oh, it's
12?
about 12 million.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Kelly. So this is the 5-year plan. As we've learned over recent months, there's going to be a big employer coming to the area. Does that figure in to your planning as well? And perhaps getting financial support from large employers like Meta?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Sanchez, that is one of the things that is also coming out of the revenue analysis, is this idea of finding sponsors and partners and working more closely with large employers, and really with what we're doing under CityGo is really working with all employers, large and small. It's not just for large employers. It's not, it really is everybody having access to transit and making it really easy through past programs. We also are, so I think there are opportunities for us to even expand that more, and we certainly want to be able to do that. The reason the Transportation Development Plan is so important for us, and the reason that we need to learn and do more than one thing at a time, is we have to be able to have much broader conversations about those over a longer period of time, so that we can help people figure out where can you plug into this work.
Madam Mayor. Well, first, Council Member Willetts kind of asked my question already. You did a really good job of answering it. So that one kind of went off the plate. But to expand on it a little bit further, you said that some of our neighboring municipalities are meeting the funding for the level of service that's being provided. And I guess I'm just, the next, potential step is if they were providing more funding, then that could provide additional services in that area. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor, Council Member, that is exactly how that would work. We are a lot more engaged in those communities, especially in Canyon County, and looking at one of the things that the Canyon County or Napa City staff asked, how do you make so much progress in Boise? What's the difference? And what I was able to explain to him is the difference is the relationship, that we are a partner of the city of Boise, you're a partner of ours, and we work together in partnership to try to bring that value to your community. Since that time, we have a strategic group that meets very regularly. We're now in working with CWI, Napa, and Caldwell on solutions that would work. We're part of their advisory committee that's working on their transportation system. They're looking at their road dollars and thinking about ways that they can optimize and leverage those with some of the transit funding that's available. So I often remind people that I've been doing this long enough, in 28 years. I remember when I would come to the city council meetings in Boise, and the question was, why are we funding empty buses? We need public safety. We need libraries. We need all these things. Why are we funding buses? That's an evolution. And I'm watching that same evolution in Canyon County. I'm watching that same evolution in Meridian. And I think it's just a matter of time and patience as we work through that.
And Madam Mayor, just quick follow-up. Kelly, again, wonderful answer. Since it was brought up earlier in tonight's meeting, and I also got some public testimony about it in questions of, we wish that our bus route would extend further down State Street or more towards Eagle. I guess the question would be, if there was more funding support from Eagle as a municipality, it would make it easier for us to extend those routes further in the future.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, we are actually working on directly with Eagle to think about how they would like to invest their contributions. And some of those things we are looking at also include other ways of connecting people to the transit. So bringing people to, similar to what I do, I go to the park and ride in Boise. Maybe there's ways we can use micromobility or other on-demand options, and some of the resources that we're able to develop in Eagle. So sometimes it's not always one thing that's the solution. It's trying to figure out how to put things together. Harvest Transit is a great example in Meridian, where we weren't getting a lot of attention about transit. We started Harvest Transit through a community effort, and Harvest Transit has led to, I think, an understanding that we need to invest more in public transportation, which we're seeing that happen in Meridian.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right, thanks.
Well, Kelly, thank you very much. Okay, is there? Yeah, I just want to make sure nobody else. All right, and there's probably no additional staff follow-up. So there's no action on this one at this point. But with that, I'm going to close the public hearing. Thank you all for coming either online or here in person to testify. And Valley Regional Transit, thank you for your partnership.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, yes.
Can I just add one comment? I really appreciate everyone coming out and sharing your stories of being a public transit rider. Everyone feels really strongly about this, and we want a better system too. I would encourage you to also reach out to your legislators and let them know how you feel about public transit, and let them know how you feel about our state having a dedicated funding source for public transit. That can look like a lot of different things, but I think that hearing from constituents that it's important really goes a long way. So thanks for coming out and joining us tonight.
Thank you. Have a great evening. So now we're going to move on to item number 2, CAR 21-33, which was deferred from March 1st. We've got Crystal, welcome. And then Jeffrey Hatch. Jeffrey here?
He should be online.
Online, okay. And then the Neighborhood Association, South Cole. I've got Earl Henricks, but I also see Esty. Are you here for the Neighborhood Association? You are not. Okay. All right. Well, with that, nobody signed up on the sheet. Is anybody here to speak on this one? All right. Anybody online? Okay, nobody's online. With that, we'll move right into this one. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, this should be pretty quick. Members of the council, this item before you is a rezone of approximately 1 acre from R1A Single Family Residential at 2.1 units per acre to R1B DA Single Family Residential with development agreement at 4.8 units per acre. The property is located between Vincent Street and 3 Mile Creek Road. It currently has 1 single family residence and the surrounding area is zoned R1A to the north and south, A1 to the east, and R1B DA to the west across Vanell Street. The site is in a residential neighborhood comprised of large and median lots with commercial uses to the north and east, adjacent to Overland Road and Milwaukee Street. It is designated by the Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use as suburban and is also within the B1 Airport Influence Area. The applicant requests R1BDA zoning in order to split the property into 4 lots for additional single-family homes. As detailed in the project report, the planning team and the Planning and Zoning Commission finds the R1BDA zone to be most appropriate for the property based on the allowed zones of the suburban land use, surrounding area, B1 Airport Influence Area, and proposed development. In order to comply with the B1 Airport Influence Overlay, a development agreement has been submitted with those rezone application to keep residential density to the 5 units per acre allowed within the airport interim policy for parcels within the B1 overlay, but outside the 65 DNL noise contour. That's a mouthful. The Boise Airport has indicated no objections to the density maximum of 4.8 units per acre on the property, provided that an navigation easement is recorded. As indicated in your packet, the applicant's proposal complies with approval criteria for a rezone, and as such, the planning team and Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval of the application. Thank you, and I'll answer any questions.
Any questions for staff?
Madam Mayor, just to make sure, as I was reading through the packet, I have answers to some of the questions. There was some comment about the bridle path and that somehow this development would interfere with it, but as I understood from some previous applications, the bridle path does not go across this property. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, Council President Clegg, that is correct. It's to the subdivision to the south.
It's to the south. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks. And just to confirm, nobody here is present to testify on this item?
Madam Mayor, the only person is Jeffrey Hatch, who is the applicant. He is online.
Okay. Mr. Hatch, if you would like to say anything, you're welcome to. We've got nobody here ready to testify and council has no questions.
We are in support of the staff report and recommended conditions of approval. If anybody has any questions, I'll stand for questions, but otherwise, I think Planning and Zoning did a great job providing feedback, and Crystal's done a fantastic job as well. So
great, thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Nope, we do not have any questions for you, sir. Okay, with that, I am going to close the public hearing.
Madam Mayor, I move approval of CAR 21-33 Hatch Design Architecture, 824 South Vanille Way, rezone of approximately 1 acre from R1A to R1B with a development agreement.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion? Clerk, will you call the roll?
Clegg.
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Sanchez.
Yes.
Willetts.
Yes.
Woodings.
Yes.
Bajent.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Next up, we'll move to item 3, CAR 21-38. Is Delaney back there? Wonderful. And I can't remember, is it Delaney or Delaney?
Delaney.
Delaney. Okay, great. So we've got Delaney Garlick for the city, Alex Drexel, Rock Schill, and Deborah Nelson for the applicant. Okay. Esty, friends for this one, the neighborhood association. So we'll go in that order. I have 3 people that signed up in advance from the public, Tom and Kathy Coops, and then David King.
Madam Mayor, David King is online.
Great. Okay, so we'll take those 3 folks first, and then I'll see who else is in the room and as well as who else is online. So if you're online, I haven't called you, don't worry, the clerk will get through and call you as well. And I've got this list if you signed up to testify. And with that, go ahead, Delaney.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Mayor, and members of the council. Before you tonight is a request for a rezone. The project site is approximately 15 acres located at 8373 West Victory Road.
at the intersection of Victory Road and South Trabuco Avenue, and bordered along the eastern property line is South Milwaukee Lane. Uses to the east and south include Boise Independent School District Office, high school and junior high school. To the north across West Victory Road is a mix of uses including single-family residential, outdoor storage, commercial, and industrial. West of Trabuco Avenue is a Parkcrest subdivision, which is comprised of detached and attached residential homes located within Ada County. The site is currently vacant and was recently annexed into the city with a land use designation of mixed use. The mixed use designation is intended to promote a more compact pedestrian and transit-oriented pattern of development. The site is currently zoned A1, and due to this location, a higher density than what is currently allowed in the A1 would be supported by Blueprint Boise. The proposed zoning of R3 allows for up to 43.5 units per acre. However, the proposed project is for 301 multifamily units for a total density of 20 units per acre, which is also included in the development agreement for a maximum unit count of 320. The R3 zone is intended specifically for higher density residential development in close proximity to retail, employment, transit, and other concentrated uses. This project would offer a variety of housing types and products near the transit, employment, and retail. This site is specifically well served by transit options with the Valley Regional Transit Route 28 running adjacent to the site. A bus stop to the eastern boundary along Milwaukee Lane is existing. A condition of approval does require that the development provide a permanent sheltered stop here. Due to the specific use and location, a development agreement was included with the application. The DA does tie the rezone to the conceptual plan submitted. It places limitations on vehicular access, density, and location of where the 3-story buildings are located. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously approved the associated PUD and recommended approval of the rezone and the DA. An amendment to the conditions of approval was made at Planning and Zoning, which replaced the proposed detached sidewalk along Trabuco Avenue with a detached transportation side path that would allow for multimodal use, including pedestrian and bicycles. Let's see. There are 2 access points to the project site, one from Trabuco Avenue and one from Milwaukee Lane. Direct access off of Victory Road is prohibited. With the project, the internal driveways, pathways do provide significant connectivity and integration to the surrounding properties, including to the schools to the south. We have received updated ACHD comment letter that indicated observations of insufficient storage of a dedicated northbound left turn lane. As a result, ACHD did condition and recommend widening of Trabuco Avenue to 3 lanes from Victory Road to the site access point. Public comments were also received both during the review period and as late correspondence. Those comments detail concerns with the high density residential use within the mixed use designation, increase to traffic, safety concerns, and overall incompatibility with the surrounding neighborhood. The Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval, and the motion needed this evening is a final decision on the rezone. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? Yes.
Madam Mayor. So just to make sure that I'm right on the ACHD report, and I think Ryan's in here as well, or he was, maybe he's not. The concern is that people are going to turn off of Victory onto, is it Trabuco? And then they're going to take a left into the new development, and the time it's going to take them to turn left might extend too far out towards Victory. That's the concern.
Madam Mayor, Council Member, to clarify, I believe it's the northbound turning onto Victory Road was the concern. So the widening of Trabuco would provide additional stacking for those folks using Trabuco Avenue to access school, specifically during the AM peak hours.
And then Madam Mayor, just to follow up there. So the change to the three lane would allow a left turn lane and a right turn lane.
Madam Mayor, council member, I believe that is the intent of the widening.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I have two questions. One is, can you define what high density means from a, well, definition perspective, I guess?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, council member Willetts, I think that's kind of up to interpretation. I think in this scenario, we are looking at a rezone to an R3 zone, which ultimately in that zone district would allow up to 43.5 units per acre. At that density, that would be considered high density. With the proposal in front of us, we are looking at half of that density. So we're closer to 20 units per acre. Again, still a lot more dense than what is currently there. It's vacant. We have some nearby surrounding subdivisions. Those are a lot closer to maybe 8 to 10 units per acre. So I think in perspective, if you're looking at the surrounding area, it is denser than what current residential is. However, it's kind of meeting in the middle as a transition from those existing residents to the commercial, industrial, and school uses.
So the textbook might be medium density? I mean, if we're playing Goldilocks here?
Yes,
Okay.
I would agree with that.
Okay, and then help me understand the process here. So P and Z's approved this. If we want to deny this, what are the legal requirements that we have to have? Because I know it's different, right?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, council member, planning and zoning did make the final decision of the PUD. The PUD included a 301 multifamily unit project, which before us tonight is the recommendation made by Planning and Zoning Commission, which is for the rezone to the R3 with a DA, which basically ties us back to that PUD approval. And we also have future design review requirements as well.
Okay.
Mayor. Thank you. So I'll follow up a little bit on that. As I understand it, the PUD was not appealed. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, that is correct.
So that decision is final. So here's a question I have. If we were to approve the rezone tonight, because it has a development agreement that ties it to that PUD, and we had some concerns about the design of that PUD, for instance, some of the access points, there's very little cross access for even pedestrians. What would be the opportunity for us to provide comments on those design issues?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, specifically to those design items that you're discussing, we are still open for design review. So I believe a lot of those can be kind of addressed during our design review, which will be in front of the committee. The DA is open for modifications at this point in time. So anything that gets modified tonight would be the final say.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of the number of units that is being suggested, as you noted at the opening, it's much lower than what this zone would allow without the development agreement by more than half. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, that is correct.
And then finally, the PUD as modified concentrates the majority of the highest density products on the, I've got to get this right now, north east corner of the property, which is the furthest away from any single family development. Is that also correct?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, that is correct.
Thank you.
Further questions? Thank you. Okay, now we will hear from the applicant. Welcome.
Madam Mayor, council members, good evening. Alex Drexel, 33 for Sequoia, Development Director for Layton Construction, speaking on behalf of the application for 8373 West Victory Road. We appreciate the opportunity to present our exciting project here tonight. Again, I want to thank Delaney with the City of Boise and the staff for their hard work and quick responsiveness throughout the duration of this application process. Before we get into the details of the application, I hand it over to my trusted colleague Deb Nelson, I want to take the opportunity to introduce myself and the team behind this development. We are working on behalf of the owner, Welltower Inc., to identify and deliver what we call wellness housing across the greater Treasure Valley. Layton has had a presence in the Boise area since the early 1990s, and many of our employees were born and raised here locally. Other members of the development team are also participating by Zoom and are available to answer questions. This specific development will likely be the first wellness housing project we deliver in the market and brings a differentiated for rent housing options to Boise residents in a community that is in desperate need of housing diversity in the midst of a challenging housing market. We will soon identify some of the specific factors of the project, but in general, this will be a highly amenitized community emphasizing walkability, social interaction, and overall wellness of our residents. Welltower, the owner, is a national leader in health and wellness space and a long-term holder in all their assets. As such, the concerns and complex community dynamics are of great importance to our team. Through a pair of neighborhood meetings and several iterations of our site plan, we adjusted multiple aspects of the plan to address common concerns and questions from the members of the community. We appreciate the thoughtful feedback and look forward to growing together. A common motto within our team is that as was good for the community is good for our project. Thank you.
Mayor, members of the council, Deborah Nelson, 601 West Bannock Street. We're in full agreement with the project report and the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommended approval to you this evening. As was mentioned, they also approved the PUD for the multifamily residential community. And tonight we're here to ask your approval of the rezone on the 15-acre site along Victory from the holding zone where it currently is at 8-1 to R3. If we could skip just 2 slides, we'll go on to the site plan. Thank you. So we'll just start with a brief overview of the development, and then we'll focus on the rezone and the compliance with the comprehensive plan. The development team has taken a placemaking approach to design with a focus on wellness, as Alex mentioned, with walkability, healthy fit lifestyle, and sociability designed into the site. Primary amenities are centrally located, including a clubhouse, a large 25-meter pool, a dog park, and large landscaped lawn areas. The clubhouse includes indoor and outdoor fitness areas, a lounge, and work and event space. The site is organized in a residential block design internally with connecting sidewalks and pathways to create easy access to the clubhouse, to the bus stop, and to adjacent schools, creating a walking loop around the perimeter. Surface parking is minimized. Internal trees provide shade and attractive streetscapes. The buildings will include a mix of studio, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom residences in a variety of building types. Larger 3-story apartment buildings with tuck-under parking are oriented on the northeast corner and along Victory, away from the single-family residential on the west. A variety of 2- and 3-story townhomes, townhome-style multifamily buildings fill the rest of the community. 2-story 4-plex townhomes line the perimeter and are centrally located around the clubhouse, while the back-to-back 3-story 8- and 12-plex townhomes are central. Next slide, please. Here you can see the building heights arranged with the 2-story buildings along the west, providing that transition along the perimeter. Next slide, please. So the city's already determined that R3 is an appropriate zone for this site when you designated the property mixed use on the future land use map in the comp plan. R3 is one of the allowed zones within this designation. A primary purpose of the zone is to accommodate higher density residential development, and it allows for quality, walkable, compact development. R3 provides a much needed housing type for this area, providing a nice transition between the existing and the planned uses and that's consistent with what's called for in the comp plan as well. It also complements the non-residential uses that are in the area. We received some comment letters from members of the public saying that there should be an additional commercial use on this site. But we want to address that and explain why this is actually appropriate for higher density residential only. First of all, there's no access on Victory, and so commercial would not be viable. It would also decrease the needed housing. You'd lose the opportunity for that needed housing type in this area. There is already many non-residential zones and uses to the north and west and south of this site. So this site isn't needed to create that mixed use element. In the R3 zone, which is one of the zones that the city has designated as appropriate for mixed use, most commercial uses are not allowed. And so you've already contemplated, and that's true of the other residential zones that are listed there too. So you've already contemplated that there could be wholly residential, not only mixed use zoning allowed here. The next slide, please. Further consistency with the comp plan is shown by looking to your transit goals. Your plan specifically calls for locating higher density residential within a quarter mile of transit. This site is adjacent to transit with Route 28 circling the site. Victory Flats will provide that needed housing along Victory Road, the Victory Road Transit Corridor in this rapidly growing area of Boise, and also provide some connectivity to commercial areas that are nearby at Cole Road and I-84. Next slide, please. Also on the transit note, consistent with the comprehensive plan goal to improve access to existing transit facilities, this project will add a bus shelter at the existing bus stop on Milwaukee. Next slide, please. The project includes detached sidewalks and pathways throughout, providing great walkability and connectivity. You can see connections here on the west and east side that go out to the perimeter loops. You've got the mixed use pathway along our western border as well. Next slide, please. The site also has great proximity to schools. Maple Grove Elementary is just a half mile away, with access all along sidewalks with signals at the intersections. Adjacent to the site, we've got the technical school and junior high providing a short walking access. Next slide, please. Looking to road improvements, ACHD has reviewed and approved the traffic impact study for the development. To mitigate traffic impacts, ACHD is requiring the development to widen Trabuco Avenue to 3 lanes. This will provide that dedicated turn lane into the development's access driveway on Trabuco. It'll also alleviate the concerns that Councilmember Halliburton mentioned and were addressed by staff to help alleviate the stacking that was going on with that left turn lane northbound onto Victory. The Planning and Zoning Commission also requested that the developer construct that 10-foot multi-use pathway along our western border that I mentioned to provide safe pedestrian and bike connectivity to the schools to the south. Next slide, please. The project has 2 access locations. The primary access is on the west on Trabuco. The second access is on the east on Milwaukee, where Boise School District has agreed the project may access the site from their private lane. The fire department has confirmed that these access points are acceptable with an access easement from the Boise School District. The fire lanes on site have been widened to address the fire department's comments in their comment letter as well, and they have approved them. Next slide. With that, we thank you for your time and listening, and we'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. So I do have a couple of questions. Maybe we could put the site map back up if possible. That would be helpful for me. Thanks. So question number 1, as I saw your original concept, had a couple of additional access points onto Milwaukee, I believe, but not an additional one on Trabuco. Wonder what the thought process is of concentrating all of the access in one point on one side or the other, rather than having some disbursement of that access.
Madam Mayor, Council Member, are you talking about pedestrian access?
No, I'm talking about vehicle access.
Okay, vehicular access. So we have east and west. There is one access point that's allowed for each. We did have to relocate on
one access point allowed by ACHD.
one access that's been proposed as well.
Okay.
So that's what's been approved.
Okay, so my question is really, so I guess my question is of staff, why on a collective road would only one access be allowed in this distance?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, staff's point of view at this point was really to be restrictive off that Victory Road. And we saw that having the 2 access points both on the east and west provided for more distribution throughout the whole site. So we felt it met the needs of, access on both sides.
Oh, okay.
Council President, I might be able to offer a little more insight as well. ACHD did have a spacing requirement south of Victory. We had to get at least 275 feet away. On the west side of Trabuco, there are 2 driveways that go in and access a small portion of the residential development to our west. They required us to relocate our access further south to align with the driveway on the west. So we couldn't go further north for that spacing, and they wanted us to align with the driveway on the west, so we did. And so this shows that new location that meets their requirement for that alignment.
All right. Well, you answered my question. I think it's horrible urban design, but there you go. So my second question is, this is a site full of service drives and very little else. Why did you choose to do that? Why do you have a drive around every single building rather than some green space in between some of those?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg. So I think there's a few reasons for that. Primarily fire, to provide good fire access, and because they certainly like to have aerial access and driving access in front of the buildings. Also, the design was very purposeful to create that residential block feel. And with the detached sidewalks throughout, it is set up to feel more urban. Really, the parking is very minimized. So you don't have a lot of surface parking that's creating a lot of, that's taking up a lot of space. It's distributed. You've got the tuck under garages that help provide that. And so the design here is broken up into that kind of urban-like grid very purposefully. The internal trees as well, I think, are going to help that streetscape feel. So it does feel walkable. We feel that people will be able to get from their home in any location, get to the central clubhouse along these tree-lined streetscapes safely and comfortably.
Okay. Do you have the pathway or walkway?
It's towards the end.
Yeah, thank you. Why is there no through walkway on the east side? And why is there no through walkway on the south closest to the schools? So that if I'm a kid who lives here and I live to the south, I don't have to, I can easily access the schools.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg. So just to orient everybody, north is to the left side of this, it's tipped. So the east direction does have a number of pathways that extend out. So the red and the blue line, the light blue lines all extend out to the east. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 connections out to the east. And then a detached sidewalk that we have to construct. We have to take out an attached sidewalk and turn that into a detached sidewalk all along Milwaukee there. So it does funnel at multiple locations out of the east side, similar to the west side. On the south, this is future plans for Boise School District to, we don't have a road adjacent to us to the south. Yeah. And, we don't know exactly what they're going to do on that property. It very well may be a staging area for their transportation and buses. And so it may not be a pedestrian, but either way, we have accommodated that through both sides of our property going south, again, here to the right. And especially with that addition that the P&Z was very apt to have with the 10-foot multi-use pathway. I think you've got great connectivity going along there that will be continued down Trabuco.
So I understand that, but there's no connection out to those sidewalks on Trabuco or Milwaukee further south. There's one between the buildings next to the roadway entrances, but not one between the next building south. And I guess I'm curious why that is. Doesn't make any sense to me that you wouldn't be able to access out there.
And Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, it sounds like there is some flexibility that could be added in that furthest southeast and southwest quadrant between those buildings.
Okay. And then as to my comment on the east side, I wasn't talking the full east side. I was talking the interior one. There's no connection from that second larger building next to the clubhouse and the parking and all of that across that parked area to the corner to get out onto Milwaukee. And so as you go through design review, that's another thing I would be looking for is a clear walkway between those 2 points.
I see. So on the from the central area up towards the northeast.
Yeah, in between the 2 big buildings.
Yeah, I think we could accommodate some striping marked crosswalks similar to what was designated further south of there to create that connection. I see what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, quick, easy question. The lot to the south, is that part of the same lot? Like when I look at the map, it doesn't look like it's a separate lot. Between that lot between Salt Creek and the development.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, it is separate. It's not part of this development. That is part of the land that the Boise School District retained and that they have plans for their operations.
All right, great. That was the quick, easy one. So the second one really goes back to traffic and the ACHD study. And we got a fair amount of public comment about this over email. And the concerns that they're talking a lot about is the F rating that Victory Road has for a level of service and the amount of additional trips per day. And I'm just wanting to make sure that I asked you that question ahead of some of the public testimony to see if you had an answer to that concern.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, yes, Victory Road currently does not meet the planning level of services that ACHD has set for that size of roadway for a 4-5 minor arterial. But it is planned for widening 2036 to 40 in the CIP. But even sooner than that, it's already in the 5-year work plan for design in 2025. So it seems like that will, the actual construction does appear to be expedited, but that we just know what's in the plans right now. So it is planned to be widened to 5 lanes to address that deficiency. This project doesn't have any mitigation requirement on that, consistent with ACHD's policies, but it is in the plans to be widened. The one piece of mitigation that is required to meet the trips for this development is that widening on Trabuco. And so not only will that help the stacking we talked about, but it will change the roadway from a 2-lane to 3-lane and will allow it to meet levels of service, that same planning level of service standard.
Thank you for that answer. I think we'll hear from the public a little bit more on that one. And the plan unit development was already approved by planning and zoning. I do share some concerns that, yes, there's minimized on-street parking, but there is a whole heck of a lot of blacktop on the plan and cars driving around every single corner, around every single loop. And so, while this isn't really part of the rezone, it doesn't seem to be extremely pedestrian friendly on the internal, because any which way you go, you're crossing a street or blacktop space instead of green space. And so I don't know if that's the same concern that Council President Clegg was voicing. Maybe it's a similar one, but it is something that when I look at this, I do say that's a whole lot of blacktop and a whole lot of street crossings to get from any of the units to some of the great stuff that's in the center of the plan.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, may I offer one additional response on the traffic that I think also is specific to your issue about Victory. They're on the ACHD's future, the master street map. They do have plans in the future for a road that extends running south of Milwaukee and then extends east and west out to Cole Road on the east and Maple Grove on the west. And so that will provide another east-west connection for this area. So that's also in the future plans to alleviate some transportation issues here. And I do have a slide that shows that master street map, if that's of interest.
Madam Mayor, I would love to see the slide if it's available.
Delaney, would you mind flipping toward the end? There it is. So you can see where that is planned. It comes down, so it extends directly south of Milwaukee, but it connects over on the public street to Tribuco. It does not actually enter the park site. It's just the nature of the way the map, it's on the north side.
Thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, one last question. Back to the site plan, regardless of whether you continue to have all the blacktop or not, why did you choose to have such wide radius corners at all of the corner? That in a very low speed, low volume network, you would have very narrow curb radius on those corners. And as I'm looking at this, those are really wide. Is there a reason it's a very suburban feel?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, yes, there is a reason. It's Boise Fire Department's request to have the right turning radiuses in there. And so the last slide, actually, when we had to widen out the fire lanes to meet their comments in the record, actually shows that shows the turning radiuses. You can see kind of the drawing around to accommodate their concerns.
All right, thank you.
Anything
you.
further for the applicant? Thank you. We're going to take a break and then we will hear from the neighborhood association. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Esty, are you speaking for the neighborhood? Come on up.
I have a presentation tonight as well. My name is Esty LaFrenz, and I live at 7604 West Thunder Mountain Drive. I am the president of South Cole Neighborhood Association. Madam Mayor and City Council members, to be clear from the beginning, the South Cole Neighborhood Association is requesting the denial of CAR 2138 and PUD 2162. My presentation will begin with the surrounding land use, then we will discuss the negative implications of the traffic study and why a rezone to R3 does not make sense. Then finally, we will show the fire code violations that make this development impossible for this location. Next. So we will start with the surrounding land use. The property lies to the south of Victory Road between Maple Grove and Cole. To the west lies the Park Crest subdivision. To the south lies West Junior High with a current count of 819 students and Frank Church High School with a capacity of 500 students. To the east lies Dennis Technical Center, which provides ROTC and much needed technical training for 4 area high schools, Bora, Boise, Capital, and Timberline High. They bus students back and forth throughout the day. Also to the east, the Boise School District Admin Building. The roadway into the property is from Trabuco Avenue to the west. Next. I want to give you a quick history on West Junior High. West Junior High used to be located at 711 North Curtis Road, which is located kitty corner from St. Al's Hospital and right next to the large white bulk fuels tanks that you see along Curtis and Emerald. At some point in the 1980s or 1990s, it became apparent that these bulk fuel storage tanks, which contain gasoline, diesel, and jet fuels, were leaking. In fact, the location where I obtained this historical photo of West Junior High includes comments from its former students who talked about daily headaches from the intense smell of gasoline. It took several years, but in 2006, a bond election was passed with overwhelming public support to relocate West Junior High. So now it sits in a much healthier area. Next. I want to show you briefly why the zone to the north is industrial, so you have a big picture, comprehensive understanding of this location, and then go straight into the traffic study. I've placed a red X on the approximate location of the land parcel, and you will see that across the street lies the airport influence area B1, which only allows industrial development. Airports must maintain adequate compatible land use to ensure successful operations, and the P&Z Commission has requested the appropriate noise mitigation be applied to this development to ensure proper protocol for Airport Influence Area A. Next. Now let's move on to the traffic study. I'm going to start with an explanation of LOS, which means level of service. LOS, as it pertains to traffic, is defined as a quantitative stratification of performance measures representing quality of service or how well a transportation facility operates from a traveler's perspective. The grading system is similar to grades on a report card, but contains 6 categories, A, B, C, D, E, and F. LOSF is considered breakdown flow where the amount of traffic exceeds capacity, defining a worst case traffic condition. Next. ACHD's review of the traffic study as it relates to the project clearly indicated problems. The first thing that I want to point out is that Victory Road under current existing peak hour conditions is LOSF. When adding in the project with an additional 166 vehicle trips per hour and 1,981 additional vehicle trips per day, you will create an even worse LOSF, but they don't show less than F. So it was failing before, and it will be even worse if this development is built. ACHD does indicate plans to expand Victory Road to 5 lanes here, possibly as early as 2025. But I will point out in the footnotes to the table that the 5-lane arterial still exceeds the acceptable limits, and it would still be an LOSF. Now let's look at Trabuco Avenue, which is the signalized intersection along the western side of the property. This roadway is the main entrance and exit serving the existing subdivision and also 4 school district buildings. Existing conditions show peak hour traffic is currently acceptable at LOSD. However, for existing plus the project, it becomes LOSE, which is no longer acceptable based on those ACHD footnotes. Even if they expand Trabuco Avenue to 3 lanes, because as you see in the footnotes, this would still exceed the acceptable volume limit of 530 vehicles per hour when adding existing plus project. Next. This map is highlighting the existing road infrastructure in blue. You will see that the subject property is located along Victory Road and is only accessible from Victory Road. It's not accessible from the west or the east or the south. Next. Here I'm showing the collector roads, which are the entrance and exit to the subject property. To the west, you will see the signalized intersection at Victory and Trabuco. To the east, you will see the right in, right out concrete barrier curbing at Milwaukee Lane. The reason for this concrete barrier is that due to the volume of traffic on Victory Road, ACHD determined that it was no longer safe to make left turns from the property and to not disrupt the smooth flow of traffic from the east to remove left turns into the property. In addition, ACHD defines Milwaukee Lane as a private drive and not a public road. Next. These photos show existing traffic in February 2022. The photo on the left is taken by my daughter as we drive to school. So this is showing us turning onto Trabuco with traffic on Victory looking in the westerly direction, probably backed up all the way to Maple Grove. The photo on the right is where I've parked between Frank Church and the Tech Center, and I'm looking at the typical morning traffic along Trabuco, all the way down to Victory that travels about 5 miles per hour. Next. Now I want to focus on the International Fire Code. IFC Section D 106 defines road access requirements for multifamily residential units. So then D 106.2 would apply, which says that projects having more than 200 dwelling units shall be provided with 2 separate and approved fire apparatus access roads, regardless of whether they are equipped with an approved automatic sprinkler system. The third part defines the distance from each access road based on the diagonal dimension of the property. Next. So let's take a look at the first responder firefighter routes. The nearest fire station is Station 17, located at Marguerito Park along Cole Road. Fire trucks would travel north on Cole to the intersection at Victory, which we can't turn left onto Victory anymore. But the fire trucks can stop traffic at the intersection, ignore the no left turn, and safely proceed through traffic during an emergency. As they approach the property, there's no left turn from Victory onto Milwaukee Lane due to concrete curbing in the middle center line of the road and also the concrete triangle barrier that prevents vehicles from that direction. So the only access entrance is the access to the property at the signalized intersection at Trabuco Avenue. Next. Let's look at the intersection at Milwaukee Lane. This intersection includes a triangle-shaped concrete barrier with preventive elevated concrete curbing, both in between the yellow striped center line of the road and next to the western side of the traffic triangle. This will not allow safe fire engine or fire truck access into the subject property. Therefore, this should not be considered an approved second fire apparatus access road. Next. Communities in Motion thinks that Victory Flats should be 52 households, which does seem a little more appropriate. They further show that the project within the SIM forecast reduces performance, possibly by not assisting with pedestrian level of stress and bicycle level of stress. This report is correct. This is not a pedestrian-friendly area and does not allow safe bicycle lanes. This location is not near shopping or restaurant areas and is likely to contribute to worsening traffic in the area. Next. This PUD conflicts with several of the key principles of Blueprint Boise. Contributing traffic will worsen air pollution. It will negatively impact the existing neighborhoods and schools, and it diminishes safety. A less dense development with less impact on traffic in this area should be considered. Environmental stewardship will be severely and negatively impacted by the increased traffic volumes and traffic slowdowns and the potential for vehicle idling, which creates criteria pollutants that contribute to Treasure Valley inversions and greenhouse gas emissions contributing to climate change. Using emission factors from the MFAC model used to predict vehicle emissions, 1,981 vehicles per day would yield 410 pounds per day of carbon dioxide emissions. Next. I truly understand that our city needs affordable housing and high-density development is one possible solution. However, I don't believe that this design is appropriate for this parcel of land due to the existing LOSF traffic conditions and the potential for even worse than worst-case traffic impacts, creating the potential for traffic slowdowns and idling, which create air pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. Based on traffic impacts, it simply does not make sense here. But based on fire code, I don't believe it's possible to place this development in a location with a partially blocked access road. Please don't rezone this parcel to R3 because this area can't handle additional traffic impacts. And please understand that the PUD seems to be in clear violation of the fire codes. We need to consider a less dense residential zoning along this already congested LOSF roadway and certainly less than 200 dwelling units, so it would meet fire code. If we do proceed with this in violation of the safety for these
Madam Mayor,
possible,
time.
if we do proceed with this in violation of the safety for these possible residents and the community as a whole, then the city is fixing one problem while creating another. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now I'm going to move into public. Mr. and Mrs. Coops, you signed up early and you're on the other list too first, so you're welcome to come up and testify.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
could I just point out that the planned unit development was approved at Planning and Zoning and was not appealed, and it's not before us tonight. What's before us tonight is the rezone. Thank you.
Perhaps some of what I'll say is frustration then. Good evening. My name is Kathy Coops. I live at 8196 Thunder Mountain Drive, and I'm a director of Friends of Magrudio Park. Do you want me to repeat? My name is Kathy Coops. I live at 8196 Thunder Mountain Drive, and I'm a director of Friends of Magrudio Park. Madam Mayor, members of City Council, first off, let me thank you for allowing me to speak. I truly hope it makes a difference, but based on my experience over the past few months, I'm pretty sure you already have your minds made up. Look no further than today's memo from the City of Boise Planning and Development Services to you all regarding the rezone of 8373 West Victory Road under conclusion and recommendation, reason for decision. Quote, the associated project is not a major departure from what could be expected to develop within the surrounding neighborhood and is consistent with the long-term vision for the area. And this scares me. I haven't given up though, because what goes on in the Southwest affects not only my family, but thousands of others like me. And here's just a few concerns regarding this property. The traffic. I drive this part of Victory Road every day between 7 and 8 a.m., and I can tell you it is a congested nightmare. There are times you can barely get through, and heaven help you if you're going west and trying to turn south into this very area. And I certainly would not want my child walking along Victory, especially elementary age to Maple Grove. Pardon me. It is just a major safety concern. Taking everything into consideration, I would have to say my top concern is the added traffic. You all need to spend some time at our end of town to have a better idea of what we already deal with on a daily basis. The Southwest seems to be being treated like an ugly stepchild as more and more high-density housing is likely to be considered. I've read the statistics where you say there's not enough affordable housing with more people arriving daily. I have to wonder why the city didn't think of solutions ahead of time instead of promoting our area as such a wonderful place to live, which it is, but which you're trying to take away from us. It's kind of like locking the barn door after the animals are out. If it's housing you want to provide, there's thousands of acres further south that could be developed into housing. And you could build plenty of infrastructure out there to handle all the growth. Please don't destroy what we've already got. And if you must build on these 15 acres, please, please, please be reasonable and decrease the approved density of 301 units. Please don't rush to a decision without taking these things into consideration. Thank you for your time.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
excuse me, before you sit down. Just a question for you.
Oh, sure.
So you just asked us to be reasonable with the zoning, and I'm curious as to what you think is reasonable.
To think about the effects that we've talked about tonight with the added traffic and weigh the consequences of what is going to happen if we have this many people moving into that area with the added traffic pattern. It is a mess out there. I invite you to come out any morning and park out there and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and Madam Mayor, just to be a little bit more specific, I'm actually asking, so there's a rezone before us today, and there's multiple different zones that it could be, and there's multiple different densities that it could be. And I'm wondering if you had an idea of what you thought was reasonable for the amount of density that would go into this type of development. If there was a different zone that you would be in favor of, or if it's just the development altogether.
Well, first of all, for me, it would be the development altogether, but I'm reasonable and I know that's not going to happen. So I would just ask for consideration of less density. I don't know what's appropriate, but I would like to see some other numbers considered. And I have an engineer that is on this subject, knows a lot more about this subject than I do as far as the numbers. I just know that what we're talking about is, I feel, totally unreasonable.
Okay, great. Thank you. I think it's
Sorry.
safe to say it's less than R3 is what you would be asking for, but you're not sure on the exact specific one.
Yeah, I probably would want to see some other ideas.
Okay, thank you.
Tom, are you testifying as well? Mr. Coops? We have people online. Okay, great. Oh, David King, yeah. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. My name's Tom Coops. I live at 8196 Thunder Mountain Drive, just outside the border of Boise. I want to talk about, I guess I've told you everything was mandatory, right? Okay. This is personal. My feeling is the density of this development is very much in contrast to the surrounding area. I think we could do something significantly less and still be more than anything in the area. A clump of homes in that area on Victory Road is not going to solve the requirement for housing that the greater Boise area needs. It will just make a very small, atypical spot out there where it is, where it's proposed. I don't think it's congruent with the rest of the area in any way. It will be a burden to the roads. It'll be a burden to the environment. ACHD accepting it is no comfort to me. They've accepted a lot of things that have caused a lot of problems that have had to be redone over and over in the last 46 years that I've lived here. I have enjoyed the overall nature of living in the Southwest Boise area. Excuse me, for the last 46 years. The density of this development intrudes into our area significantly. I'm aware that the City Council seems to believe that dense development is the preferred approach for the future of Boise. particularly in the southwest area. I don't notice it in the north end. I don't notice it in East Boise. But apparently, somehow Southwest Boise is preferred for dense development. It appears that the solutions being considered will significantly change the Boise which before now was appealing and is now changing. This is a change away from what makes the Southwest the place it is. Again, the support system for this type of development is not in place, and it's going forward will be a case of more of build first and then prove it caused problems and then struggle to figure out how to solve those problems, which is embarrassingly typical of many things that have gone
Madam Mayor,
in the
time.
past.
Thank you. We're going to go to David King because he signed up in advance and is online. He's no longer there. We'll try
No,
again.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Oh, wonderful. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry. I've got two different Zooms going, one on my laptop and one on my phone. Okay. If you can start my time.
Yep, go ahead.
All right. Madam Mayor and Council, thank you. I'm David King at 8172 West Thunder Mountain Drive.
Mr. King, we lost you.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Oh,
There.
that's so much better.
Okay. I'm sorry about this. Okay. It's what you get when you get two computers going. Okay. I'm sorry. David King, 8172 West Thunder Mountain Drive, Boise, and I am president of Friends of McGurdio Park, and I stand in opposition to this project because I think it's the poster child for the failure to disclose and study a project when it is initially up for a discretionary approval. The true nature of the project is concealed until the last minute, and it leads to this argument by the applicant here, the nonsensical argument that a project like this was contemplated at the time that this was rezoned as mixed use. No one would go through the process with the annexation, rezoning, or any other initial steps if concrete plans and studies weren't on some developer's desk well in advance of their public disclosure. And you hide the true applicant from the public. Instead of disclosing the private developer, you use proxy applicants, the school district, the airport authority, and yes, of course, your own Parks and Recreation Department, which is an agent of the Idaho Building Contractors Association. The process you follow is secretive and it's destroying Boise. When this property was originally annexed into the city last year, the two neighborhood associations called attention to the impact of groundwater recharge, which doesn't make the top 20 list of impacts of this project. This is a gargantuan high-density project. It's entirely incompatible with the surrounding uses. There could be over 1,000 new residents into a corner of land onto failing roadways, which Council President Clegg plainly calls horrible planning. There's no mass transit, there's insufficient infrastructure, and it's a fire code violation. Environmentalists make lousy neighbors, but great ancestors. Please don't write yourselves into history for the destruction of the beauty and the character of Boise. Please stop following third world procedures for approving projects. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
David, I have a suggestion for you based on the opening for your testimony. If you believe that the things you said were true, I would suggest that you file an ethics complaint with the Independent Ethics Commission of the City of Boise. Some of the allegations that you had were very serious and would suggest that the City Council is engaging in corrupt procedure. So I would really encourage you to do that if you believe it's true.
And allow me to respond.
There's no response needed. Thank you, sir. We will now hear from Alexandra Danilovich. Alexandria, I'm sorry.
Okay. Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members. My name is Alexandria Danilovich, and I live at 8566 West Thunder Mountain in Boise. I'm the co-founder and board member of Friends of McGurdio Park. I attended the P&Z meeting last summer that originally discussed rezoning this parcel from open space to mixed use. At the time, I personally asked to deny the request due to the convoluted and incestuous nature of the handling of the application and procedures of it. I also requested that we see some sort of official plan from the developers before they just blindly and haphazardly approve such a request. We were all told that this project needed to be rezoned for mixed use because, and I quote, "This mixed-use designation is intended to promote a more compact pedestrian and transit-oriented pattern of development. Mixed use is typically located along the corridors with the activity centers." I think I lost it. Activity centers rapidly served by transit in order to allow for a mix of uses, including residential. That is laughable because those factors do not apply to this area. The infrastructure just does not exist for it. We were told that this would be a wellness development with a few businesses to be included in that 15 acres beyond just cramming in high density urban housing into a rural housing area. However, what sits before us here tonight is just a plan for 301 dwelling units with 521 parking spaces. We now have the request to zone it as an R3 with no commercial, no markets, no delis, no nothing to make it an actual urban feel. So I'm glad they can walk to the clubhouse. They cannot walk anywhere else because there's nothing close. The only thing that's close is Walmart, and that is a 7-minute drive. And where, pray tell, are the residents of this development going to be working? Because gas stations, Dutch Bros, and Idaho Pizza Company is about the only thing that is nearby. The bus 28 runs only Monday through Friday. It only runs from 7 a.m. until 6 p.m. That is it. So public transportation in the area is a joke, and driving a car will be a necessity. Lastly, you guys, we're always talking about high density housing, but we're also talking about low income housing and making things more affordable. How in the world is this going to be more affordable? I see nothing in the plans that states that it will be. However, I do see that there are expensive requests such as electric car charging stations. And I don't know anybody in the lower income bracket that owns a Tesla. So will this actually help our supposed housing crisis? With all that being said, I am asking that you respectfully deny this new R3 zoning request, make the developers stick to a mixed-use zoning to create something that will be beneficial to the entire area. Please do your part to create and encourage responsible growth for all of Boise. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then Amy Russell. Welcome.
Madam Mayor and City Council, yes,
we
higher.
Yeah.
And I'll try to stand closer. I don't know that I have anything significantly different to say to you guys than what you've heard before. My concerns are the density. I think for this area with the access, so I drive it frequently. I have a junior hire at West, and next year she'll be joined by her sister. So I know what it's like to sit in traffic in this area. And it concerns me that it's just, we don't have the infrastructure in place. We may have it in 5 years with Victor being widened, but we're not there yet. So to put this here now in a spot where we already know that we have traffic concerns just exacerbates it. And I'm concerned by that. It worries me a little bit for student safety, having that much additional traffic right there and knowing that you can only go in at Trabuco. I'll have scarily enough one that may be a driver next year, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that. But these are 7th, 8th, 9th grader drivers that are going in and out of here in addition to parents and buses. And then we add this much additional traffic going in. I'm not sure that I think it's a safe situation or a great situation for right there. I think it could support housing, just not this dense of housing in the area. So those are my concerns.
Thank you. So I don't have anybody else signed up. Anybody Anybody else here wanting to speak to this item? I'll go ahead and check online once more.
There is no one, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I have
Before we
a-
have rebuttal from the applicant, are there questions for staff?
Yeah, I have a couple questions for staff. We've heard a couple of questions about fire and obviously the roadways and their capacity to handle more people. Can you educate me on the process? So this goes before ACHD. Do they have an approval or do they just provide information? And the same is true of our fire department.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts. This application did get transmitted to several different agencies and departments, including Fire, Public Works, ACHD. Part of this project did require a TIS, so the traffic impact study was a requirement for the developer to produce. That went to ACHD for their formal approval comments, and they were open to provide any mitigation. A result of that was the 3-lane widening on Tribuco. Fire is also involved in the process during the review. They provide their agency comment letters. Oftentimes these letters do have things that the applicant needs to address. So site plans and things like that can change as a result of those agency comments. So in this case, Fire provided comment. The applicant provided edits to their site plan, and that satisfied Fire's comment. So throughout the process, I would say several agencies are involved. We typically wait till we get all those comments back before we present something in front of our commission and council.
Okay, so the follow-up. So those comments or suggestions, are they merely suggestions, or at any point can those different agencies say this is incompatible? Or are they merely offering suggestions to enhance and make sure that things are in a better place?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Council Member, I think there's a few levels of discretion there. Obviously, we need Fire's approval for something to get built. So we are looking for satisfaction from our fire department. They are involved in the other processes down the road. So design review, building permit applications, grading, all of that. So they're an integral part of that process. Folks like ACHD, if we're looking at public roadways, that's not in the city's jurisdiction. So we do rely on them to provide those comments and conditions and approvals.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
I don't actually think this is a question for Delaney, but just kind of a general comment. We heard from several parents today who were commenting about getting their children to and from school in cars. One of the things that I think would be really helpful to see in the school district response to applications is the busing situation from a proposed development. Like, for example, if this is in Bora High School's area, would they bus from this neighborhood to Bora High? And that would really help me make a better decision, knowing what those potential traffic impacts are going to be in the morning or after school time. And that's just kind of a general comment maybe for going forward. I don't know if staff can kind of work with them to maybe provide something more like that. But another thing that I heard from a couple of commenters was that there's no public transit here. And yes, we learned earlier in our public hearing that our public transit system could be better. Like, people want it to be better, but there is public transit here. It is on an arterial roadway. These are the types of roadways where we envision having a lot of housing, frankly. We don't envision having a lot of housing back inside neighborhoods, but we do envision it on arterials, particularly where there's transit present. So I just wanted to make a couple of comments there.
Further questions for staff, and then we're going to go to rebuttal.
I have one question. So the development has already been approved. The question is about the rezoning. If the rezoning isn't approved, what happens to the development?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts, the PUD is contingent on this evening's rezone and DA. Any modifications to the rezone or the DA would in fact impact that PUD. So PUD right now does have approval. It does not have an appeal. However, it is contingent on this evening's decision.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I saw Ryan from ACHD here earlier. I don't see him now. I don't know if our staff can answer this question, but my question is, we heard that there are improvements on the master streets map planned for this area over the long term. And as I understand it, that isn't in the 5-year work plan, but would be farther away than that. Is, from what you know, is that correct?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, that is correct. So the 5-year work plan did include those improvements on Victory Road. The improvements farther to the south that did that east-west connection. I'm not sure of the timeline on that, but it's not within the 5-year work plan at this point in time.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor? I don't know if you're the right person to ask or if the applicant is, but can you quantify how many people we think will be living in this area? So I'm trying to, I know that that is squishy because of units and things like that, but I'm just trying to conceptualize. We talking 1,000? We talking 5,000? What are we talking about here?
Madam Mayor, council member, I might point to the applicant if they have maybe an estimate based on unit or bedroom count, I would say, rather than unit count. If there's any approximate that they would like to put out there. At this point, I don't think we really calculate a population from that.
Madam Mayor, I don't know if we're waiting for an answer to that question or if we're still asking.
It can go into the rebuttal.
All right. Question about the land use map. So this is a mixed use designation on the land use map annexed recently at some point. Are there any other areas that we know of south of Victory that have an R3 designation that are also in that mixed use area?
Madam Mayor, council member, I do not have that information in front of me at this time.
Yeah, I can hold on another question and my brain's still spinning. So if we have rebuttal, I can see if it pops up by the time we're done.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of the council. A few quick comments and then some larger ones. Noise attenuation, yes, we will meet the standards for the airport area A, which requires attenuation in the building materials to that 25 decibel level, and we will meet that. Fire, there was another comment about the access and the concrete entry to Milwaukee. The fire department has looked at that and has said that these accesses that are shown in our site plan are appropriate. They just need a cross-access easement with Boise School District, and they've agreed to provide that access. Traffic, obviously, big topic from the neighbors, and we've already had some discussion of it. So, you know, in addition to what we've talked about already, a lot of the commentary from neighbors is we have too much traffic and we want lower density. Please push this further south. Pushing out density creates more traffic. Lower density creates more traffic. When you spread out the housing that's needed away from your arterials, away from your transit, and away from these great infill locations that are next to employment and schools and other non-residential uses that can support it, then you create more of a traffic problem. This is a great opportunity to maximize both the transit, the arterial, and the appropriate plan designation here to provide that right level of density. It does provide, you know, I think to Councilmember Halliburton's just recent comment there's not R3 right next to it. You're next to the county and you're next to non-residential uses. What a great transition from that county R8 to these other non-residential uses. Turning to some, I guess a couple other quick comments there. Schools do provide busing here, Councilmember Woodings. Yes, to all areas that the public schools serve, they will provide busing. There will be approximately 600 to 700 residents in this location, Councilmember Willits. Just based on bedroom counts, that's an estimate. Turning to site plan and some of the comments that were received there. One of the answers about why it feels like there's streets around that we felt like was kind of that more urban-like grid, and you're seeing it as suburban. So we're trying to understand what we can do to accomplish that. And I think there's actually quite a bit. I mean, part of it is understanding that we have parking underneath the townhomes, which is part of what creates that kind of we think more urban feel to it rather than suburban feeling apartments. And so, but that does require the road access. Those are back-to-back townhome units. So they are grouped, but then they have the garage access with the front entries. But there's still a lot we can do. And so we'll work to do that. And here's some things that we think are appropriate in response to the comments, very good comments we've heard. We did respond to fire's request to widen the fire lanes from 20 feet to 26 feet. And that did create more parking feel, surface parking feel, but we'll work with them to see what we can do, if anything, about that. We'll certainly work with them to sharpen up the corners wherever we can. And see if there's room to give there. From a design standpoint, talking to our land planner, there's more we can do from a material standpoint. So while we may have to provide that rounded radius, we can make it not look so rounded with some materials, the way we treat the cobble with some stamped and colored concrete. Similarly, we can use colored and stamped concrete to create better walkways, because we definitely see what you're talking about to create that connectivity. There are many areas that we can improve that, and not just with some stamped and colored concrete, but by also removing some of the parking and replacing it with landscape islands to create actual paths. And so we do see some areas there. We think that's completely still within the site plan that is appropriately still to be reviewed by design review. We agree that would be an improvement, and we would be happy to add those in our own design going before design review. We also agree with the suggestion of those new external paths. There's not much time left here, but our land planner is also online. If you have further questions for him, Kurt Massey, if you wanted to give him privileges. So with that, I just wrap up by asking for your support of the rezone. Yes, it would be consistent with the PUD's direction, the P&Z's direction to approve the PUD and to recommend approval here. They thought this was appropriate zoning. It's consistent with your comp plan, and it meets many goals with that transit supported development. So ask for your approval.
Thank you. Yep, go ahead.
Madam Mayor.
We've got a couple questions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I heard her first, so she'll go, then you'll go.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your comments. I did look at the site plan in a lot more detail and realized that those were back to back. I still wonder, given the design, if there isn't something you could do to make two. So when you say it's a more urban feel, as I look at the dimensions, we've got blocks that are about 100 feet wide. I don't know any city in the country that has blocks that small. Portland has the smallest blocks I know of, and they're 200 feet. So something to gang those together to make it at least a 200 feet would actually make it feel more like blocks and not surrounded by roadways. I realize that the PUD is already approved. I can't impact those things, but by suggesting them, and clearly you guys are open to considering that, I thought I would at least throw that on the table. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Hi, Deb. Good to see you.
You too.
I haven't asked this question, and it seems like years this time. How much are those units going for? Used to be my favorite question to ask when I first came on council.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Sanchez, I don't know. I don't think that's known at this time yet.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor. Deb, can you, because I noted that along Trabuco, where there's existing housing on the other side, those are where kind of these townhome units, the lower density units are. Can you describe to me the process that your team went through in developing this with neighbor input and kind of what that looked like?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Woodings, and so yes, the team did meet with the neighbors, and Alex could address this more directly because he was actually holding those meetings. So maybe he could answer that. But yes, there was input received there. Certainly, the request from the neighbors included to move density away from that western boundary and to make that feel more like the homes that are next to it. And so that's part of how those fourplexes were placed there, only being 2-story, being broken up into 4plexes, not being 8plexes, not being the 12plexes. There was also changes based on neighbor input to the larger apartment buildings and their orientation and breaking those up into the 2 buildings. And then also I would note that part of a lot of the design thinking that went into the neighbor compatibility to the west is those 4plexes that are oriented there have the garage and driveway access internal. On the external, they're designed to face as if they're the front of those homes with design features that are equal to the front of a home. And with patios, with the connecting pathways to the walkway, and with that landscaping. And so the idea of the look of those was really thoughtful toward what do the neighbors to the west see. And do
you want more?
Oh, yeah. Madam Mayor, council members, yeah, just to piggyback on Deb's point, she did a fantastic job describing our process. We had multiple neighborhood meetings, and through that process, I think the overwhelming comments were with respect to the larger, denser buildings, the apartments, and some of the density. So we used to have in our original plan more of the density right along Victory, and that also extended over to the corner of Tribuco. So through that process, we shifted the tuck under apartment buildings along Milwaukee and Victory and away from the housing. Those also used to be 4 stories in our initial concept plan, which was another major concern of the neighbors and still allowed under the 45-foot height limit of the R3 zoning code. So we dropped those down to 3 stories. And that density that we originally presented to the community was closer to the 340 unit range. And through the process of cutting out a floor, moving the buildings and decreasing some of the size of those apartment units, that dropped the density down to 301 units, which we felt was a fair compromise. So.
All right. Looks like nothing further for the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions for staff?
Madam Mayor, I've got my questions for staff now.
Great.
I'm a little more organized in my head. So I'm looking at the land use map of the area, and it goes suburban, mixed use, school, suburban, and then I think we go to office and then commercial on the other side. And if you kind of, scan it further out on the land use map, you'll see every once in a while there's a little pocket here and there of a mixed use area, typically close to some type of activity center, whether it's a neighborhood activity center or something larger. My guess, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that the reason that this is mixed use and right next to it is suburban is this was annexed in later on down the road. And we wanted to make sure that there was that flexibility as far as what could go there.
Madam Mayor, council member, I would say that is correct. When the annexation came in, the mixed use felt like the most appropriate land use designation to allow for flexibility, to allow for housing, and just kind of keep that option open, being on that arterial with Victory and the transit line right adjacent.
Great. And so in that mixed use zone, when it was annexed and it was given that designation, R3 was one of the types of zoning that it could be, the residential uses as well. And then there was potentially even for some different office or commercial. I'm wondering if any of those uses, the other options, had the ability for even a larger amount of density that might be seen in this area. So there's like one of the office designations, I think, allows for a little bit more potentially than this one does.
Madam Mayor, council member, that is correct. There would be office type zoning that would be allowed in this designation that would go higher than that 43.5. But as we mentioned with the DA, I mean, this project before us is actually at the 20 units. So we're not even meeting the max density at R3. And yes, there are other zonings that would be higher density than R3.
And Madam Mayor, just to follow up there. So yes, there are zoning densities that would be allowed in a mixed use that would be more than this. But at an R3, this isn't even maxing out an R3. It could be more dense than this. And when we rezoned this and we gave it a mixed use allowance and included R3 in that, we knew that that was the potential for there to be a larger amount. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, council member, that is correct.
Yeah. And the reason why I ask those questions, I always I always try to make sure that I'm thinking about a predictable development pattern and our expectations that we give community members, and trying to wrap my head around like, okay, when this was given this land use designation, is this a predictable development pattern moving forward? And so that's the reason why I asked that. I would note, I guess, that I actually rode my bike up to Cole and Amity on Sunday. I went to Diggs Pizza and met somebody there. And this is denser than most of the other stuff that you would see in the area. And that's correct, right?
Madam Mayor, council member, that is correct.
Great.
Thanks. All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion. If I get a second, I'll explain myself. I move approval of CAR 21-38 Layton Construction 8373 West Victory Road rezone of approximately 15 acres from A1 to R3D with a development agreement.
Second.
Madam Mayor.
Yep.
This is a tough area. This is, we have a mixed use designation here. If I look at our comprehensive plan, we haven't identified any activity centers in this region much at all. There are some on Overland, there are some on 5 Mile or on Lake Hazel. There's nothing in between. That's a big distance if you look across the city for identifying places where there should be activity centers so that people can walk and bike. We also have a pattern that makes it very difficult to provide access so that those kinds of mixed use activity centers would work. As noted, Victory doesn't allow any access from this at this particular site, for instance. So having said that, in my mind, this is a chicken and egg thing. Councilmember Halliburton pointed out that right now there is no other higher density development very near here. And because there's no higher density development very near here, there's not enough residents to support a mixed use activity center. So which happens first and how do you get there? And I think it's clear that there are things that could make this work better. The identified access and roadway improvements on the master streets map, for instance, to the south. The potential improvement over time of figuring out where the mixed use activity centers should be out here and supporting them in a way that make them actually work. There's the beginnings of one at the corner of Victory and Cole. It's about half a mile from this site, certainly walkable if it were safe to walk down there. I have a daughter who lives out in this area, so I know how uncomfortable it is to walk on Victory or on Cole today, the way that they're designed. That doesn't mean they can't be redesigned. That doesn't mean those things can't be improved. So the question is, if we deny this, if we don't do this rezone and this housing doesn't happen here, there won't be the change that you all are concerned about. And I agree that you have some valid concerns, but there will also not be the impetus to change the other things that will make that better over time. There will also not be 300 housing units that will support helping this terrible housing shortage that we have. There is a burgeoning industrial park very near here to the east, and that industrial park is going to support a lot of jobs. Those jobs have to live somewhere. And if they can't live here, they're going to live further out. And it won't be that they'll produce less traffic. It's just that that traffic, instead of being on site and potentially aggregated in such a way that you could serve it with transit or other mobility options, it will be one car at a time through your neighborhood to get to those jobs. So I'm not convinced that it will decrease the traffic overall. I think it will just put it in a way that will make it really more difficult to provide the mobility options that might solve it. I'm sure none of this makes any of you feel better. It doesn't make me feel better because we haven't done a good job of planning in this area. I'm a planner and we haven't. And the question is, how do you fix it? And I think you fix it by starting to take actions that create impetus to fix it. Right now, we don't have any impetus to fix it. And over time, you guys have just gotten drowned in traffic. You've gotten drowned in lack of access. And we need to fix it. And to me, this is a step in that direction. Thank you.
Madam Mayor. Thank you, Council President, for your comments. I am not a planner, but I've been on council long enough to see a few positive things happen in this area. One of those is that this development is very near Molinar Park, which we recently added significant amenities to because we heard from the neighborhood that there was a shortage of park space. And we addressed it. And that was really important to us. We took that money out of our capital fund to correct that deficiency. It's near Maple Grove Elementary School. It's near the middle school. It's fairly far from Bora, but nothing that a bus can't fix in the morning. So yes, it will change. It will change the neighborhood. It's on Victory Road, which is a very busy road. It's an arterial roadway. And it's smack in the middle of Cole and Maple Grove, which I think we'll see some, as the council president said, some activation around commercial uses in the future. So while, yes, it will probably, change some things, it's not going to change anyone's private enjoyment of their home. It's not going to change the way it feels to walk down your street. So I'm in support of this. I want to talk about some things I do appreciate about this development. I appreciate the 2-story townhomes providing the buffer between existing residential and higher density development. I think that's really smart. And I think that it is considerate to neighborhood feedback. I like the mix of housing types. It's something that we always ask for, especially in developments of this size. We don't want to see a monolithic block of one type of housing. We don't want to see it all be just apartment buildings, especially on this size of acreage. So it's really nice to have some of those townhomes, triplexes, quadruplexes, and multifamily buildings. And I think that that'll give some really nice selection to the housing types out there. My nephew lives out here right now. He hates his apartment and he's like, he's always looking for a better place. And so I could see him being like, hey, this is a way better place because this is absolutely appealing to his demographic. So thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I know this is not the outcome that you wanted, but I appreciate you taking the time.
Madam Mayor, was there a second? Did I miss it? Okay, there was. Great. Victory Road is an absolute disaster. It's a mess. It doesn't feel comfortable to walk on. It doesn't feel comfortable to bike on. I biked on it 3 days ago, east of Cole, and then all the way from Cole down to Franklin. And I was doing that to explore some of the canal pathways opportunities that are going to be in that area from New York Canal all the way down to Farmers Lateral. And I'm a very confident cyclist, and it doesn't feel like a safe place to ride, and it doesn't feel like a safe place to walk. And that's something that the city really has to do a lot of work on with ACHD. And we are meeting with ACHD later this month or next month, I can't remember which one, to do a walking area on Cole between Victory and Amity, so people can really see what it is like to walk and to ride in that area, which is important because it's a 35-mile-an-hour road that's 5 lanes wide, and it doesn't make a lot of sense the way that it's set up. Those are things that we have to solve as a city. I look at this development and I don't think that it's going to make Victory Road any better. And it certainly will be adding additional vehicles onto Victory Road. And that really is my biggest hesitancy towards this project. Because as far as like the housing and the type and the density, I actually don't think it's that bad. And I think that it is really close to a lot of job opportunities all around. I mean, within 2 miles, you're next to hundreds and hundreds of jobs. But it really is our job to make sure that you don't have to take 10 vehicle trips per day. And then not every single time that you want to go somewhere that you have to get in your car to do it. People are always going to have to drive in a lot of areas, at least for some of those trips. But if we continue to build out ways where trips to parks, trips to the pizza shop, trips to the brewery, trips to, the canal pathway that may be somewhere close, those are the things I think that we really have to be building for. And that's why, while I do have some concerns about the traffic on Victory Road, I think that those are things that we do have to address. And I do agree with Council President Clegg that we have to be able to build in a way that gets us closer to those things. And again, I know that, that's not the answer that a lot of people want to hear, but it is something that I know that we do care about what it's like to walk and bike in that area. And that's one of the reasons why we're meeting with ACHD in about a month to really have that experience for folks who haven't been out there. I do appreciate everybody who came out to testify and who continue to, testify for their neighborhood. And I'll be supporting the motion.
Anyone else? Nope.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
I hear you, and I am struggling with this because this is tough stuff. And I've been quoting Jimmy a lot. That road's a disaster. I have felt so much rage on that road. And I don't know what we do when we don't own the roads. So we have a report that says it's okay. This. I like to talk with my hands. We have a report that says, go forth. We have a fire report that says, go forth. And yet the neighbors live there every day and say, don't go forth. And so I'm still trying to figure out, if I'm going to support this motion or not. The other thing that I've committed to is to ensure that we let the free market help drive these things when we can. And that we put, safeguards in there, but I'm struggling. So I just want to let you know, I don't know how I'm going to vote on this motion, but I want you to know that I hear you. That was the best neighborhood presentation I have seen in my, short time on council. I know you care. I know that's why you live in Boise, because you love it and you want to keep it what you love about it. And so I've got to give some thinking time to this, but I just want to let you know that this is tough for me personally to decide what to do for all the reasons you've said that we don't have control over. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you. I too echo my colleagues in thanking you for coming out tonight. I am a renter, and I think it's important that we have more housing units available to renters. In fact, I would wager that the reason you probably don't see a lot of renters testifying when projects like this come up is their lifestyle doesn't allow them to. They're probably working multiple jobs. The rental market is highly volatile. And so I see myself as a fellow renter being that person who has to advocate for them. And so even though it's difficult, I concur with my colleagues. I used to visit a friend who lived out near Victory, and I had to emotionally prepare to go out there. So I don't think anyone will argue with anybody's stance about how difficult it is to travel in that part of Boise. But we also have to weigh the needs of different members of our community. And I would say right now, I think it's renters who are suffering the most. And so for that reason, I will be supporting the rezone.
Councilmember Bajan, did you have anything? I just don't want to make sure I didn't miss you. Otherwise, I'm going to call the question.
Sure. This is R3 permitted in our comprehensive planning documents. It's consistent with Blueprint Boise. It's transit-oriented development. It's actually coming in at a density lower than R3 would permit. There are a few things that I personally would change about this development. I don't like how closed off it is. I don't like the amount of asphalt in there. But at the end of the day, ACHD has approved the traffic plan. The Boise Fire Department has approved the fire plan. It complies with those codes and rules. It's permitted development. And to my colleague's comment, this is a situation where I think the market should build what the market wants.
Thank you. Did you have something
Madam
else?
Mayor, before we vote, if I could, I'd like to ask my seconder if you agree to direct staff to bring back findings, particularly based on the applicant's comments that will give direction to the design review committee as this goes forward to them if it passes tonight.
Madam Mayor, I can't remember what the direction was.
That we add the extra access points on the pedestrian way, that they look
Oh,
at
okay.
the design of the corners, the design of the service drives, those kinds of things.
Yes, I concur. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all good? Okay. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Willetts,
Well, I just asked the question, if I pass, what happens? Do you come back to me? Do I have like 3 more minutes? What happens? The clerk doesn't know either. Maybe,
We can go to the end of line, but we don't have 3 minutes because
well,
yeah, so we'll go through. and
Okay.
get back at you.
I want to, yeah, thank you.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
Willetts.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. We
Madam
are gonna,
Mayor- Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, point of order.
is there another piece with this one?
No, but I believe Council President Clegg was asking for a second on amendment to the.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're gonna take as quick a break as possible, but we all need a little break before we pick up the next and final item. Thank you all. the three of you. Please feel free to come closer if you'd like. I should have thought ahead and just decided to move you guys ahead. I'm sorry about that. So now we'll move into this appeal, DRH 21-423. We're gonna have Josh jump right in, and then the appellant and the applicant. Curtis Marshall?
That's me.
All right. Sheila, hello. And then Brittany, are you here for Preservation Idaho? Wonderful. Is there Noel Martinez?
No, since it's the appeal, we figured I would just come today.
All right. And then you'll do the rebuttal of yourself and yourself.
I suppose.
Okay. All right. With that, if anybody's online for this one that's a party of record, please just raise your hand so we know. And with that, let's just jump right into it.
Thank you, Madam Chair, or thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm before you tonight for an appeal of a Historic Preservation Commission approval with conditions of a certificate of appropriateness to construct a second-story addition to an existing single-family residence in the East End Historic District. So the property is located on the north side of Jefferson Street between Strawhan and Elm, approximately a block west of Roosevelt Elementary School. The property is zoned R2H, which is medium density residential with the historic district overlay. And the property was determined to be contributing structure in a survey conducted in 2002. So the applicant's request is to construct a second-story addition to the rear of the home, out of view of the street largely. The addition is lower than the existing roof line. It's highlighted on this slide here in red and is set
Josh,
back.
we can't see your slides.
Oh, okay.
Oh, we did? We lost the ability to do slides from Josh's computer. All right. Can we refer to the staff report, or do?
Madam Mayor, absolutely.
Are you three good with that?
I think so.
Okay, all right. Let's try to refer to the staff report rather than
Yeah.
delaying this, given the hour.
Unfortunately, the visuals are fairly important, but they are
Okay.
certainly in the staff report.
Yeah, could you just reference pages?
yeah.
I've got the staff report open. I think we can all open it and go by pages.
Yeah, so and I don't know that I have them numbered, but A2, the elevation sheet that shows the north, south, east, and west elevation of the structure is really the most telling.
I think that's page 22 in the staff report.
It, it depicts the second story addition to the home, again, lower than the primary roof line of the structure, set back in from the primary walls and largely not visible from the street. The Historic Preservation Commission found that to be appropriate and in compliance with the historic guidelines. But in adding that second story addition and making that floor space within the roof usable, the applicant did add 2 dormers to the street facing facade. And that is what the conditions that the applicant is appealing are in direct relation to. So the historic guidelines do directly address addition of dormers on a historic structure. Historic dormers that did not exist should be placed at the rear of the house and as much out of view of the street or public right of way as possible. And also that the introduction of new dormers, when required for the habitation of heretofore unused attic space, must be designed to minimize damage to the historic roof forms of the existing building. So we included a condition of approval in the report to the commission that those dormers on the front facade be eliminated. The Historic Preservation Commission concurred. They held that condition on the report and also found that the proposal for those dormers did not comply with the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation that could threaten the contributing status of the structure. With that, they approved the project with everything, approved as is, other than the removal of those 2 dormers on the front. The applicant subsequently appealed that decision. We would ask you to deny that decision tonight and uphold their approval with conditions. With that, I could stand for any questions.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify, because we don't have the computer working, the dormers are shown on the south elevation. as proposed and the condition is that those be removed.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clay, absolutely. They are on the south elevation facing Jefferson. Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions for Josh? All right, let's go ahead and hear from the applicant slash appellant. Mr. Marshall.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Curtis Marshall, and I live at 810 East Jefferson Street with my wife and two daughters, 9 and 6. I'm going to start with saying, we got 10 minutes. I'm totally new to this process, and I didn't understand how the appeal would go. We're super happy with the approval for the work to be done on the north side of the house and the non-street facade. The dormers on the front were designed by Noel Martinez with Studio Boise to go and provide light and space to the current attic that has been finished. It's the current bedroom of both girls. They live up there. The dormers would give more space and more light. So part of the process was that, and I'm going to get some of these terms wrong, but the Historical Preservation Office or Committee stated that, you can't do any work on the street facade to change how the house looks. And a lot of the concerns of the council members back in the end of December was that if you added the dormers, it could cause the home to lose its contributing status. We don't want the house to lose its contributing status. I grew up going to Roosevelt as a kid. The East End is, I guess, my, kind of my home. My kids now go to the same Roosevelt Elementary School that I did. We like the way all the houses are unique and different. But with the dormers, we think it just looks good. And it provides a function for that room and the space up above for our family. And if it were something that would not cause the home to lose its contributing status, I just want to go ahead and see if we can get it done through this appeal process. The house, true, I think 1916 it was built. That original rectangle is no longer original. The back end of it, it has 3 sets of back doors now, which is fine because it's all at the back, and I get it. It doesn't apply to what I'm trying to do today. But the front step is poured concrete. I don't know what year that was added. It's not the original sandstone. The cool, unique little bay window kickout, that's not original. So that was added on as well. It's a concrete foundation. So this house is a smorgasbord of things, and we love it. It's very unique. So how could the addition, in my mind, of adding 2 dormers on the front change its status as contributing? Because in 2008, it was already determined that with these newer things added on, it can still contribute. I'm hoping that it can still contribute into the future, but I don't know how to go through knowing that it would work that way, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the route I'm going down. We'd love to have it. And my main part of this appeal is the neighborhood that we have around us. We've had some neighbors write in, and I can't supply that documentation for what we have going on today, but I have it in front of me. And since I have a few minutes, I'd like to share some of their support. So to start, Pam Lemley, she lives, I'm just gonna read how she put it. I attended online the Historic Preservation Committee's February hearing for Mr. and Mrs. Curtis Marshall with a planned remodel and restoration at 810 East Jefferson. Mr. Marshall was present along with Ms. Noel Martinez, their designer, who gave a thorough presentation of the plans for the remodel. In presentation, Ms. Martinez worked with 2 professors, one being Professor Philip Mead of the University of Idaho, and another professor in keeping the integrity of the house. Since the house is old and has had little care over the years, as a neighbor, I was delighted with the plan. It was a surprise and disappointment when there were no questions asked from your committee to, I'll skip that part because really it doesn't have anything to do with the committee on on the plans, because what we're trying to determine is the dormers taking away the contributing factor. Pam goes on to say, the 2-dormer bedroom and bathroom designed for the daughters on the second floor would give the girls 2 nice bedrooms for play and sleeping. The dormer windows would also help with fire safety. It is my desire to see the house permitted so that the Marshall family may have a lovely home and the other homes in the area. So it's nice. She wrote this out and she went around, and I know you're not allowed to probably see this, but people have signed in support. And it's not just like the neighbors next to us or across the street, but it's people that are a couple blocks away and kind of represents the East End neighborhood. There's also the professor from up at the University of Idaho. He wrote in a really nice email, which I can't submit, but stating that this home, basically it's in, I guess it's for adding them, and that it doesn't take away from the house and its current status of being unusual and old, because it fits more in with an actual architectural design, which is what Noel Martinez was going for. Hopefully, my idea with that is that it would help if you were to reassess it with dormers, that it could still be a contributing home for the historical preservation. And one of the last people that I will just bring up, because it is 10 o'clock at night. John, I'm going to get his last name, I think Ron Magnan, M-A-G-N-A-N. He's a board member on the East End Neighborhood Association and a member of the historic committee for the neighborhood. He reached out to me in support of what we were trying to do, asking in any way that he could help. I thought that was very kind of him to do. It's somebody in the neighborhood, a part of the committee, and I'm sorry, I don't know your name. You might know him. So there is community support in the East End to try to add 2 dormers. And yes, they're on the south side. It's the street facade, and the historic guidelines state that any work on that maybe couldn't be done because it could cause a home to lose its status. I'm just hoping that this won't. Yeah, in closing, we bought the house in 2019 with broken windows, rusted out pipes, slanted floors, the foundations are falling out. We love it. It's a project. We're going to put it together. And we would love to just go ahead and see it with a little bit more space up in the finished attic, and go against the grain with just hard and fast. You cannot put anything on the front of a house on the street facade because it's considered contributing to the historic neighborhood. Could. The dormers might not make us lose our status. Because I mean, they did the survey in 2002, I think, or 2008. Wasn't that long ago. And all the other additions were already done. And hopefully this would just make it look better as opposed to maybe some of the other older work. So thank you very much for your time. And I appreciate you guys letting me be a part of this appeal process. I'm learning a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. So now, Sheila Grisham, we will hear from the neighborhood.
Madam Mayor, I don't know if it's helpful. We figured out a way to share some visuals
great.
from my
Okay.
screen so I can throw those up.
My glasses. I haven't been wearing them because they fog up. Okay. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Sheila Grisham, and I live at 1204 East State Street, Boise, 83712. Tonight, I am here to speak on behalf of the East End Neighborhood Association regarding 810 East Jefferson. First, I would like to thank the homeowners of this Starling historic home for not wanting to demo the house and for keeping the same footprint. In keeping the same footprint, it also maintains the green space, which is part of the character of our East End Historic District. Ina's only concern with the addition of the dormers to the front of the house is that it will lose its contributing status. The East End Historic District has about 430 homes in it. And out of those 430 homes, about 230 are considered contributing at this time. And in the last few years, we've lost about 5 of them for various reasons. And if we continue to lose them, we will lose our historic district. This may not seem like a lot of homes to you, but when you have a small amount to begin with, it starts to add up. If the East End could be guaranteed that this would still be a contributing structure, we would support it. But at this time, I don't think there is a guarantee. And so we support HPC's and your staff's findings on this to approve the plan without the dormers. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Go ahead. Sheila, you might have a question. I don't know if it's for you or Josh.
It's for staff, but Sheila, stay here for just a moment. She might have a comment. So Josh, and I don't know how much they cost. Would it be possible to approve this conditional on the applicant getting a resurvey with the dormers?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, I think that's difficult. The work would need to take place and then the property be resurveyed. At that point, it could be non-contributing.
It would be, so you can't resurvey it based on plans. You can only
Correct.
resurvey it
Right.
based on what's actually there.
Yep. What we do base, the determination that would likely become non-contributing on are those Secretary of Interior standards for rehabilitation and treatment of historic structures that speak specifically to adding new architectural features, the 7 areas of integrity of a historic structure that include materials, workmanship, things like that. Those are somewhat subjective standards, but they are clear that, undertaking changes like this to the character defining facade of a contributing structure, you are in great peril of making it non-contributing.
Okay, one last question, if I could. I know that we approved solar panels on a character facing facade. Although it wouldn't add the added space, it would add light. Would there be a prohibition against adding skylights?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Clegg, off the top of my head, I think that may be more palatable because it's not drastically changing the roof line of the structure. I would need to kind of dig into those standards. I guess that's a question that hasn't been posed to this point. It's a good point. We need to kind of dig into the standards a little bit more and see what impact that would have on it.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question for staff. Provincial question from the newbie. Who decides whether it's a contributing? Sorry, it's late. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Who decides that?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts. So when the district was formed, surveys were performed throughout the district to determine, contributing and non-contributing properties, and then use those as the basis for the formation of that district.
Okay.
After the formation of the district, it is the Historic Preservation Commission who has purview over contributing or non-contributing structures. People can apply to change the status of their property if they feel it has been made in error. And code does provide provisions that HPC is the keeper of that status.
And what's the percentage? Like, when do you lose your status? Historic district.
Typically below 50.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. Brittany Sigliano, 403 North Mobley Drive, bringing up the caboose for the night. Good to be here. Good to see you all. It's been a little bit on my end. So this evening I am.
Oh, I just said it's great to see you.
Oh, good. I was like, wait. Can't hear over my own voice. This evening, I am here on behalf of Preservation Idaho to offer our support to staff and the Historic Preservation Commission's decision 4810 East Jefferson. As was mentioned in our letter dated November 2nd, referencing section 4.1 and per staff's recommendations, we cannot support the addition of dormers on the front facade of this contributing historic home. And without any historical knowledge or consideration of existing guidelines, one might agree that the dormers would enhance the property and unify what the applicants have referred to as the ad hoc additions. However, it's just not the case. And I will chime in and echo Ina's comments that we are grateful to not see a demolition application because that's what we've gotten used to lately. So I do want to thank the applicants for the work that they have done and continue to do. But unfortunately, as you know, there are a set of guidelines which we use the Secretary of Interior standards, and that's what's used by HPC as well as other historic districts and commissions throughout the country. And this provides a set of guidelines and responsibilities for responsible preservation practices. Standard 3 in those interior standards state that changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features, shall not be undertaken. These dormers will add a false sense of narrative to this home, which is contradicting preservation practices that the city follows. So the impact that the front dormers have on this property could, as Commissioner Malloy stated, be enough to tip the home's contributing status. And that is something that, as Preservation Idaho, we can't support the potential loss of a historic contributing home. We do encourage the homeowners to look at alternative solutions, and perhaps skylights may be an alternative to that. You know, it's working with attic spaces challenging, working with in historic homes can be challenging, but they have shown that they appreciate the character and the uniqueness and the quirkiness of these homes. And we hope that, you know, if we can look at alternative solutions, that's something that we can support down the line. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Thanks. Who's that? Was that Patrick? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Ms. Sigliano, it's really nice to see you again. I have a quick question for you just about what your organization's view is. So there's language in the guidelines about, you know, sort of not piecemeal development, but architectural change over time that creates a false sense of progress. And then separately, there's the Historic Preservation Commission's concern about losing the contributing home. And I guess what I'm asking is Preservation Idaho, is your view that regardless of contributing, non-contributing, these dormers should not be allowed because they create a false sense of architectural progress? Or is it rather that the potential false sense of architectural progress could cause the home to be not contributing, and that's the part you're worried about?
So, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Bajent, thank you for that question. I guess it's my answer would be a twofold answer that, you know, yes, it does. Putting those dormers on has the potential to make this home lose its contributing status, which at this point in time would probably be our number one concern. But also when we're looking at, you know, they're doing renovations to the rear of the house, which I don't think that we've ever not supported renovations to the rear of the house. It's that front facade that once you change that, the entire look and character of not only the home changes, but then you start to have a greater impact on the district itself. And what I think is crucial moving forward in having historic districts is that we look at the impact that the changes to a home have on the district, not just the individual home, but the impact on the entire district. So if the impact is to lose contributing status, that's probably first and foremost, but I would say moving forward, let's make sure we're looking at the district as a whole. I hope that answers your question.
It does. I think I took your answer to be, we're very concerned that this home could lose its contributing status, however, even if these dormers could be added without affecting the contributing status, it has a potential broader scale negative impact on our district as a whole, and it doesn't comply with the guidelines. So even in that circumstance, we wouldn't want to see these dormers. Is that basically right?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Bajent, as always, your words are much more eloquent than mine. So thank you for summarizing it much better. Yes, that's what you heard.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. I don't think there's anybody else, which means you can come talk again. Anybody online? Do you have anything more to say? And I'm really sorry again. I can't believe it's just the three of you and that you waited here all evening. Please don't let this scare you from coming back in person again.
I think our dormers seem pretty small compared to Victory Greens. No less important though. Yep, I guess in rebuttal to this, the chicken and the egg. It came up before, and it's the battle that I don't understand is how do you go ahead and determine if it's going to lose its status or not? Here's my plan. Can't have it. It's got to be built. I can't build it because I can't get permission to. So you can't go ahead and judge whether it can contribute or not. I don't understand this at all because it's just in circles. And which office does it? I don't know. A third party did the last one. It wasn't any state anything. 2002. She came through. You can look up her name. Their office is still here in town. I'd be like, just come on by, check it out. Please submit this. They won't do it. So here we are. I understand the concerns of the house losing its status. The story, the narrative that this house has, very basic. It's got some add-ons, church it up a little bit. I'm trying to continue that story and that narrative by churching it up just a little bit more without having it lose that status. I don't know. I appreciate you guys' time, take it in consideration. And I just hope that we're not hampered by the few words that are put down that you have to follow this. No street facade changes are allowed, period. You can't have growth in a neighborhood. You can't have change. We don't want to just stagnate and let the houses fall down. I can live in the house and I can let it deteriorate and fall, and it's not a problem. We'd like to go ahead and make it more livable. And even once we've moved on 20 years from now, maybe 30 years from now, somebody else would want to move into it and not go ahead and put in an application for demolition and tear it down because they don't have what they think that they could. Because it's an awesome neighborhood. It's a cool little house. It's been there for a while. Thank you for your time.
Madam Mayor. Sir, I just want to thank you for having a very positive and gracious attitude. Because you're a homeowner and you could very easily be very, very upset. And I think perhaps you're the type of person to take it all in stride. And you're right. Some of the things you probably heard tonight probably put all this in perspective, but I just, on a personal note, want to thank you for having a great attitude about this process.
Well, appreciate it.
Any questions? All right. I actually have one. I'm not going to be voting, but I'm just curious. It is a chicken and egg thing, and we aren't the ones, the city's not the one that does the survey that then makes the decision. It is that third party. It's kind of nuts that you can't project and then make a decision, because I appreciate that you don't want to do it if it means you're going to lose the status, but you really want to do it because it makes your life better. But what was your reaction to, if Josh did research, the windows on the roof? What are they called?
No, the skylights?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be something that, if you could do it, more light is better. But skylights, they're getting better. They don't look that good. I don't think that same effect goes in as with a dormer, where it can actually show a bit of an architectural, not flow, but cohesion, and kind of bring things together. Then you just have big pieces of glass up there. And yeah, you get the light, but walking by, I don't think it looks as historic, I guess.
Madam Mayor, I'm going to direct you a little bit more. You got to tell us yes or no, because
yes or no.
Yeah, if you're good for the lights, I think that will sway where this council goes, perhaps. So if you want your windows, I think you need to say, I want those dormer, or however you say them.
The dormers?
Yeah.
Oh.
Versus like,
oh
sure, I'll think about that.
No, I thought the question was just specifically if would you put a skylight in? I thought if it fails, like if you can't have the dormers, would you do anything for more light? We want the dormers.
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
So I don't know if I heard you say it. I thought, is safety a part of the reason why you want the windows?
That is an added part, because you would have multiple egress routes out of the attic. With the new design, there's going to be a stairwell that actually goes up there, but you would have window access out of it. Because currently you have floor level windows that anything bigger than a 6-year-old can't get out of. So those are, yes.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, I heard a couple. Was that you?
Yeah, but
Go ahead.
well, here's my question. With some of these things, we have to provide a reason why there's new information. Like, can we overrule the Historic Preservation Commission? And do we have to have a legal reason to do so like we have to on other things?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Willetts, in order to overturn, generally you would just find error in the decision-making process of HPC. Put forward a reasoned statement as to why you believe that error is in the record. If you do overturn, then you can direct back additional information to be requested in order to make another decision.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Council President.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Don't know where we're going for sure, but I would just ask, as I look at these elevations, if you considered at least a little eyebrow dormer on the non-contributing facade side of the roof to at least get a little bit extra light and space in there.
Have we?
Yeah.
Yes. So the way that design has been worked is that there's currently a dormer out the north facing
Oh, okay.
roof line. So there's a window there, and then the added second story, which is above the main living
The
space
new
below,
addition, yeah.
it uses that dormer cutout for the stairwell going up and into that room. Because right now it has a metal spiral staircase that goes out of the living room through a hole. It's awesome.
Okay. Thank you.
Can't help but add that.
No.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close the hearing.
Madam Mayor, this is a hard motion to make because, you know, my heart says that dormers would be great there, but as I look at the evidence, I think I have to make the motion to deny the appeal and uphold the decision of the Historic Preservation Commission on DRH 21-423 at 810 East Jefferson.
Second. We have a motion, a second.
Madam Mayor, I would just say, you know, the historic guidelines are notoriously non-flexible in ways that sometimes don't make any sense. And in this case, I certainly understand both sides of it. I understand the need not to lose the contributing status of buildings in the East End because of the nature of the overall survey and the numbers in that. At the same time, certainly understand the desire to get more light and space in an attic space. So, but overall, given that, and given that the guidelines are pretty direct and pretty, you know, unquestionable what they're saying, I have to support what I don't see evidence to overturn what the Historic Preservation Commission decided.
Councilmember Bajent.
Madam Mayor, I'll be supporting the motion really begrudgingly, and I want to just maybe flag a couple of things. Since we're rewriting our zoning code and we're all thinking about these things, Madam Mayor is correct. Like, it's a little crazy and kind of unfair that a gentleman can come to us and say, hey, I want to do this with my house, but I don't want to lose contributing status. If I do lose contributing status, that would be very bad. Can you help me figure out if I'm going to lose contributing status? And given the way the current rules are set up, we just can't answer him. That's tough. It's a little backwards. And I think we should look for ways to try to get citizens clear answers to these kinds of questions so that they can do the things like this gentleman wants to do to protect their contributing status with their home. I did see some factual errors in the Planning and Zoning Commission's ruling and in the discussion there. For instance, there was discussion about rules about allowing light into unfinished attic spaces to convert them. That's not what this is. He says his children are living up there already. So there was some misplacement of the guidelines and the rules. But the one that I can't get around explains that when you're going to be adding a dormer, finished or not, whatever the upstairs is, it must be done in a way that doesn't affect the integrity of the street facing roof line. And I don't understand how to get around that. I think the Planning and Zoning, or excuse me, the Historic Preservation Commission made the correct decision there. I certainly don't see an error. And then my final comment, as I read the guidelines, this doesn't really matter, but as I read them, skylights would be presumably okay as long as they don't affect a permanent change to the structure of the roof line. So if you're fitting them between joist bays, in my mind, that seems like it'd be okay. But then my last sort of side comment would be south-facing skylights are kind of awful. So those are all things to consider as you go forward, sir. But given the historic preservation rules and given the way that they reached their decision here, I have to support the motion.
Madam Mayor, I love this house. Like when your house was for sale, it's like, oh, it's such a cute little Franken house. Look how funky it is. Look at all these like fun, weird little things that have been added on. It's really a fun little structure, and I'm glad that it has an owner who really appreciates it. I can definitely tell that you enjoy our neighborhood, you enjoy your sense of place. But like my colleagues, like HPC made the right call. It's super frustrating. You should be able to have a process by which you can show your plans to somebody and say, does this impact my contributing status? And I think that that's something that should be looked into. I know we have several other historic preservation items that we've been wanting to look into for a very long time. Our planning and zoning department has been woefully understaffed for a very long time, so we've been kind of pushing those off. But maybe that can be kind of added to this body of work that we've been amassing for the past several years. And we can kind of figure out if there might be a process by which a homeowner could ask first. I think that that seems very sensible. So thank you for loving your house. It's very cute. I hope that you're able to add that extra space for your daughters. Being crammed into an attic seems, and up some spiral stairs seems less than optimal, probably. Maybe not forever though, at least while they're little. So thank you so much for coming out.
Madam Mayor, this is bananas. I don't understand this process where you have to just try and maybe, and anyhow, I'm going to vote no. I want you to have your windows. I think it looks great. Love historic homes, would love to redo one in sometime in my life, but I'm going to vote no. I wish you could have your windows.
All right, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Clegg,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Sanchez,
No.
Willetts,
No.
Woodings,
Yes.
Bajent,
Yes.
4 in favor, 2 opposed, motion passes.
Thank you. Take a motion to,
Madam Mayor, I move we adjourn.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Good night, Patrick. Thank you.
Aye.